Oh, really?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The May 1st, 2019 meeting of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County will now come to order. Please stand for the invocation followed by the pledge. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, it doesn't make noise. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and live streamed on the internet. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
No,
second.
I have a change.
Yep, Mrs. Schallheim.
Thank you. I have a change. Under the 2019-2020 year calendar, the statement of what my motion was is incorrect. My motion was to move to close on September 30th, 2019, so I would like the whole sentence struck and rewritten to reflect the actual text of my motion, which was simply just to close on September 30th, 2019. And period. I was, period.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Seems like a friendly revision. Any other revisions to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll just approve by consensus. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Would any member like to add anything to the agenda that's not currently printed? Seeing none, the agenda will stand as published. Item 2.05 is recognitions. There are none tonight. Item 2.06 is school and community highlights. We've got a couple of lights. Ms. Antwine.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to first start out by congratulating the Meade High School Chorus under Mr. Burnaby, a first-time choral instructor. He did a fabulous job last night. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think the rest of the audience did as well, because when it was over, we were all waiting on an encore. I want to move on to congratulate Mr. Mo Gaba, a Lindale Middle School student who made history in the last 2 weeks. He became the first to announce an NFL draft pick in Braille. So congratulations, Mo. I'm one of Mo's biggest fans, and I've told him this. So I also have a catchphrase for him as well. It's, you go, Mo. Congratulations. So then I move on to my attire tonight. I really try hard normally to be very business suitable. But tonight, I am in my denim, I'm in a t-shirt, and I am bedazzled for specific reasons. First, my bedazzlers, my earrings, my headgear, is to bring awareness that this is prom season. And I want to encourage our entire communities to get behind our students, allow them this opportunity for safe fun and engagement, many of whom will be doing this for the first and last time, not necessarily prom, but an occasion as formal as prom. Support them. I commend those PTSAs and those other business leaders and community leaders who are already doing it, the parents who are planning prom breakfasts and other things. As Bob would say, bravo Zulu to you for that. I also am wearing this as a reminder that we are at the end of the school year, and I'm thinking every teacher in here will agree this is probably the toughest time of the year. Ironically, I request that the community get behind our students and help them get to the finish line, especially our seniors, who are going through their own set of anxieties. Then, of course, the military and me would be remiss if I did not wear something to indicate that this is Military Appreciation Month. Anyone you know of that has served, past, present, anybody planning to, take the time to thank them for their sacrifice and their service. And in appreciation, I also want to say that next week is Teacher Appreciation Month. So for their sacrifice and their service, I encourage you to thank your teachers. Finally, I don't know if the camera can pick me up, and there are certain things I don't want shown on camera, but I will. I am wearing my Do Not Disturb t-shirt. This t-shirt is, this t-shirt is to bring awareness to mental health and the strength that we all can tight. But mental health is very serious. And it is just as serious as our physical health. It is important that we help our students to understand that this is nothing to play with and that they are the first points of action when it comes to their personal mental health. But they always have us for that support. So thank you very much for the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Antwine. And since you highlighted the military, thank you again for your service.
Thank you. I have one more.
Please, yeah.
Yes, this one.
Go ahead, if you want to. Yeah.
Me again. To our new Teacher of the Year, congratulations. The program that we attended last week highlighted some amazing opportunities for all of our students to share about what they felt about their teachers. All of us were there. We laughed, we cried, but we got the message. And Ms. Balstein, congratulations. Well deserved. God bless you, and I know you'll do well in the coming year.
Thank you again, Ms. Antwine. Mrs. Schallheim.
Thank you, and thank you for your service to you too. The point was heard. I also attended the Excellence in Education Awards dinner with the rest of my colleagues, and it was fabulous. I loved hearing what the children had to say and how they framed it, and everything about that evening was delightful. And I'm really very, very proud of of the educators in the room, but really all of our educators are just fabulous and wonderful humans who do a great deal for our students every day. I had the opportunity to visit the Ruth Parker Easton School with Dr. Arlotto and Mrs. Hummer back on April 23rd. It was my very first visit to a special needs school, and I loved every second of it. And it was great to see those wonderful educators in action. And I particularly enjoyed seeing their therapy pool That was the highlight, although the whole thing was fantastic. So thank you for that opportunity, Dr. Arlotto, and I look forward to more school visits because I really love them. Yeah. On April 24th, a few of us were recognized at the Leadership Anne Arundel, at a Leadership Anne Arundel event, and that was fabulous, and I was honored to be recognized amongst an enormous amount of local community leaders, so thank you for that. And second year in a row going to the Savannah Park High School Earth Day Festival, which I loved. I saw some of the audience members there too, which was nice. And it's just a great event. I take my daughter; she loves it. We bring friends. It's just a good day. So well done, Savannah Park High School, for their Earth Day festival. And of course, I'm going to mention it one more time in case you didn't hear it last time. The Mead Steel Drum Concert on May 8th, fabulous. Went last year, loved it. Please go. You're welcome. Tickets are still available. Yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. Certainly one of the highlights of my last couple of weeks was attending the Excellence in Education Awards dinner. I was delighted that Miss Teresa Bielstein, I believe. Sorry, I didn't catch the pronunciation, but she seems like a fabulous teacher. It was such a wonderful event to hear students give tribute to their teachers. There were videos played throughout the evening, and it was very, very touching. And Ms. Bielstein is a teacher at South Shore Elementary, right down the road from me, and I look forward to touring that school very soon. I would like to tell you all about the Innovators of Science and Engineering Challenge that I attended this past weekend. First, I went and I was able to tour the science exhibits, the science projects that were submitted by all these schools. It was a cafeteria just busting at the seams with science projects, and I was very moved that so many students wanted to spend their Saturday going there and showing their work. They were all very proud. They were all very excited to share their work. And while this was taking place in another area of the school, I was taken around and able to see this science challenge that was going on. And students formed teams, and they were given various challenges, and they would go around and complete each of these challenges. So it was a competition. It was a very, very cool thing to see, and watching these kids work through the process of trying to solve a problem. And finally, I want to thank Leadership Anne Arundel for recognizing new leaders. I felt like I was humbled to be in such great company, and I don't take their recognition lightly, and I intend to make you proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, the Excellence in Education event, as everyone said, was wonderful. It was great to see our teachers all, honored, but I do not want to neglect the opportunity to shout out to the great team from AACPS who put it on, Carol Ann McCurdy and Monica Monk and all the team from print and design and the visual people. They did an amazing job with the videos and everything about the event. And a very special shout out to the Marriott, the BWI Marriott, who provided a fabulous location and really set the tone and the atmosphere for a great evening. So we were really happy to be partnering with the Marriott as well. So the whole team together created a wonderful night to honor our teachers. I was able to go to Guys and Dolls at Brooklyn Park Middle School last week, and it was fabulous, especially when you consider that I don't think the middle schoolers really understood the gambling that goes on in Guys and Dolls. So it might have been an education for them, but it's all in good fun. But it was great. They did a wonderful job. Last week, I was able to go visit our new global community citizenship class at
Arundel High School. And it just so happened that the day I was able to go, they were also doing training there for some of our new teachers for the schools that it will be expanding to in the fall. So I got to view a little bit of their training that was going on, and then I visited 3 classrooms and saw the students. They were all designing their ideal communities. They were working together, and I was able to talk to a lot of students. And one class in particular, they were sharing things they loved about this class, which I'm so excited that we're going to expand for next year. But I asked them, and you could tell these kids got along and were having a good time, and I said, how many of you knew each other before you took this class? And they all laughed and said, none of us. And so that, to me, is one of the most important things that this class is going to do for us going forward. We talk about the importance of relationships with our adults, but also with our kids, building that community within the schools so that they feel people they're connected with outside of just their little group or their little sports team or whatever. They got to know they have already expanded that in 9th grade that will carry them all the way through. And I think that's going to be one of the great benefits we'll see over time with this class. So I'm very excited about it now, that especially even more so now that I've seen it in action, and looking forward to my daughter being a part of it next year.
Mrs. Corkadel.
So I did not see Miss Ellis at the Innovators of Science, but I was also there Saturday morning. You must have came in as I was departing. So I just wanted to comment a little bit more on the Olympics. What's really cool about this is to be clear, this is our science fair with a new name and a new approach and a fresh approach. And one of the things I love about our as we continue to build in our STEM programs and build in the integration of science and innovation with our students it was in those Olympics. This provided a unique opportunity for students who may not have been able to get that whole visual thing going on with the presentation and stuff. And they were able to explore different aspects of their science and innovation skills. So being able to demonstrate on both fronts, I think was very important. And I think it also gave some opportunities because some of these projects can be intimidating. I remember going through these with my kids in elementary school, because these are elementary school kids, and they're just absolutely amazing. What they have done in way of thinking outside of the box. I remember years ago when my kids were little, and everything was just Chesapeake Bay and science, and it was a very straightforward thing. And I've seen some evolution. I had being able to see the best of the best, because these are the folks that are representing for county-wide, and they're taking it to the next level. And I think that speaks droves to our curriculum, as our curriculum has started to really bolster some of the science. I was just so excited. And I also know that after speaking with some of the parents, how much they appreciate these opportunities for their kids to shine. So thank you very much to the staff. They did an outstanding job. I had a chance to talk with some of our STEM staff that I don't normally interface with, that aren't in my district, and they are doing such a stellar job. And we're on the cutting edge of that inclusion and diversity, even in those isolated categories. So I'm very proud of some of the things that we're doing. I also had an opportunity to visit our construction site with the county, with the superintendent, and some of the community leaders at Crofton High School. And first off, let me just thank the staff, because the reports that I heard from the contractors and stuff is that we're doing a great job as it relates to managing your money and getting the most bang for our buck, and getting in a school that's going to take us to the next level of innovation. And I just got to say, you can't help but get excited when you see some of these new things, because most of our high schools are older and stuff, and then seeing us even take some of the good and the lessons learned from Savannah Park and Northeast prior to that, and seeing what we have in front of us, I am very, very excited. And I know the residents of District 7 are also equally excited, as well as some of Ms. Ellis's district residents, because we will be sharing some in that school. So I'm looking forward to seeing it next year and giving its blessings with the ribbon cutting. So I also attended, of course, the Teacher of the Year, and I just want to do a shout out to all the other recipients too. Our Teacher of the Year obviously is the big accolade there, but we also recognize the people who support us in the business community, and I just wanted to do an additional shout out because they're that help and that connection and tether to the community that gives our teachers those opportunities. And just seeing so much excellence in one room, it was amazing and overwhelming. So thank you to the staff also for an outstanding job and a great time.
Thank you. Vice President Urrea.
Thank you. So I also had a wonderful opportunity last week to visit Ruth Parker Easton as well. And it was amazing to follow around the principal, see all the opportunities for students, and also just to see how each of those students has a personal relationship with their teacher. I know that's something that we prioritize in our school system, and it was amazing to see how this teacher tailored curriculum to a student or made sure that they had a way to communicate with them. It was just a wonderful experience. And as many of my colleagues said, I also had the opportunity to go to the Excellence in Education dinner where we awarded our Teacher of the Year. And as Ms. Corkadel said, it was also amazing to see that we recognized our business partners, because not only do they help our schools and provide resources, but a lot of them that were awarded that night help our signature programs and provide many resources so that those types of programs in each school can have those resources and give students those opportunities to get outside the classroom experience. And then another thing I had the opportunity to go to was this Monday was the Scholarships for Scholars Awards it was at the Chesapeake Arts Center, and quite a few Anne Arundel County students got extremely generous scholarships for college next year. Just listening to the excellence of our students, what they pursue, their passions, from building robots to Navajo pottery to blood drives, just everything that they do for their community, taking up all these opportunities. It was really, really amazing, and I know Ms. Gillen over here was like, wow. So yeah, it was wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. And you know, I had the honor of being there with you and Mr. Leib. $160,000 worth of scholarships were given out over that 90-minute period, and that's just a testament to the excellent work of our students and certainly the teachers supporting them. And the last comment I would just like to make, I think everyone said everything, but Excellence in Education dinner, this was the first year that the school system assumed 100% of the responsibility for the dinner. And as I shared with Dr. Arlotto, I thought that was such a seamless transition, even to the point that I did not realize there was a transition. And and I would say that not only did it transition fully to the school system, but it was the best dinner that I've been to in 4 years. And the reason why, and it's not to discount dinners from the past, but the student videos and the student testimonials, I think really, as others have said tonight, was the highlight. So thank you for that. Any further board comments? Seeing none. Item 2.07 is the superintendent's update.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. There's two things that I wanted to remind this board of, or inform the public of if they did not know. We've got two administrators, really unsung heroes here in the county that have worked with us for a number of years, that have been recently recognized at the state and area level. One is Ms. Deb Kremer, who's our current coordinator of Career and Technology Education, CTE. She was recognized last week in Baltimore by the Maryland State Department of Education at their CTE Awards of Excellence dinner for a Distinguished Service Award. She's been with us for 27 years. Will be retiring at the end of this year. She will be sorely missed. We're not quite sure how to replace her, but she is fabulous, and it was a well-deserved and well-recognized work that she's done over the past 27 years in the world of CTE. So I wanted to mention that. The next was, and you may have seen it in the Washington Post. Washington Post recently announced both their Teacher of the Year and the Principal of the Year from the D.C. metro area. And Nelson Horine, who's currently our principal of evening high schools as well as twilight schools and summer schools, was awarded and recognized as the Washington Post Principal of the Year. He has been operating our evening high school and twilight programs since 2004. And Nelson, right, this year is 50 years with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. He started as a teacher, I believe, at Savannah Park Middle School, a science teacher. He started his career. But 50 years ago and going strong, he's incredibly dedicated in the world of alternative ed and providing opportunities for our students beyond the regular classroom walls and beyond our regular schools. And he's getting more students across the stage and earning diplomas and into the work world. And he just is dedicated, and we are at our 6 evening high school sites, and we're very proud of Nelson. So I wanted to say thank you to Nelson. Of course, he's not with us tonight because he's running high schools. He's got evening high schools to run, and so we're glad to recognize him and a wonderful, wonderful recognition of his work, Washington Post Principal of the Year. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. Mrs. Ellis.
That was wonderful. Thank you for those updates. I have a couple questions because at our last board meeting, we completed the process of redistricting and had a number of families reach out to me with concerns and questions. My understanding is in order for us to put on the capital improvement plan the Arundel Middle School improvements, the first step would be to get cost estimates, the scope of that project from AACPS, correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. At your next meeting, we will bring to the board ed specs for the addition at Arundel Middle School.
Wonderful. That was my question. Thank you. And then my other question is, with the West County Elementary School, we still don't, my understanding is, have land for that. Or can you provide us any kind of update on our progress there?
My understanding is, well, certainly our team has been working with the county team. We don't purchase property. That's something the county has to do, and then they deed it to us when we are purchasing land for a school. And so they have been in consultation with the developers for the county. My understanding is a piece of property has been identified, and there are discussions going on now. That's the most that we know at this time.
Okay, so there's no timeline that you can share for when we might move on to the next step there?
Not in terms of when the land will be in hand. What we do have built into the CIP right now, I believe it's 2023, is we'll begin the process of the facility design, and then, of course, build starts the next year. Right.
All right. Thanks for the update.
Thank you. Mr. Leib.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we'd all be remiss, and the superintendent, I think out of his humbleness, didn't quite mention this, but for those of you that get the Capitol Gazette, quoting from the Capitol yesterday, for the second year in a row, Anne Arundel County Public Schools earned a first place Magnum Award for educational equity from the National School Boards Association. Anne Arundel County is one of 15 first place winners nationwide. The county is the only jurisdiction in Maryland to be honored with this distinction. I'd just like to congratulate Dr. Armato and our amazing staff on this significant accomplishment. And as Candace has said, bravo Zulu, great job.
Thank you, Mr. Leib, for calling that out. If item 2.08 is the CAC report, but I don't believe Mr. Gully's here. Okay. Item 2.09 is the CRASC report. Savannah.
Wow.
Applause before you speak is always great.
That's really good.
Good evening, President Gilliland, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. My name is Savannah Quick. I attend Northeast High School, and I am Secretary of Education for CRASC. CRASC would first like to extend condolences to the family and friends of Dustin Bradshaw, as well as the entire Southern community. Friends remember Dustin as a kind, funny person who never failed to light up a room. This tragic event is a reminder that mental health is still a very serious problem within our county. If you or someone you know needs someone to talk to, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 and the AACPS Student Safety Hotline at 1-877-679854. Both lines are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On April 18th, 3 members of CRASC attended the Youth Mental Health First Aid Training provided by the Anne Arundel County Mental Health Agency. Students learned how to identify signs of depression and suicide and were instructed on how to direct their peers to get the help they need. They were given certification upon completion. 2 students from CRASC have had the amazing opportunity to be a part of the AACPS Student Handbook Committee. For the past several meetings, CRASC has discussed ideas for suggested revisions regarding the dress code and hate symbols. We are extremely happy to see the student input being considered. The CRASC officer nomination period is now open. The due date has been extended to May 6, 2019 at 4 p.m. No late submissions will be accepted. In the event that more than 3 students have applied for one position, interviews will be held on May 8, 2019 from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The 3 finalists for each position will be selected at the conclusion of interviews. CRASC will offer a campaign clinic for candidates on May 15th and an election meeting on May 29th. Elections will take place on May 31st, 2019. Best of luck to the nominees. Okay. Tonight marks a milestone in my educational journey. This is my final board report as Secretary of Education for CRASC, and on May 29th, I will become an alumni of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I am happy to say that I have received nothing but support from every staff member I have encountered over the past 13 years. The school system has given me everything I need and more to be able to succeed in my post-secondary education. I am forever grateful. This past year in particular has been incredibly eye-opening. Working with CRASC has helped me learn extensively about the school system that I've spent my entire life in and providing me with a platform to safely express my concerns. Throughout my term, I have advocated for the reduction of class sizes and more student involvement from my cluster. I have had the opportunity to sit down with the county executive's transition team, attend the Martin Luther King breakfast, help inform as well as interact with the student body around the county through GAs, and much more. It has been an honor to work with such intelligent minds, and I know that CRASC will continue to do amazing things. We have made so many memories that I cannot possibly share them all, but I would like to share one with you now. On December 12th, CRASC held a Wellness and School Safety General Assembly at Arundel High School. At the conclusion of this event, as we were packing up, I decided to log in to one of the many college portals that I have and was excited to find an offer from my dream school, Penn State University. This is sure to remain one of the best memories I have, and I couldn't have asked for a better group with which to celebrate. With that being said, I should thank you. Thank you to Ms. Pellegrin and all of CRASC for welcoming me with open arms and teaching me all I know. Thank you to my parents for always supporting and loving me. Thank you to Mr. Williams and the staff of Northeast High School for being invested in all I do and preparing me for the world ahead. And thank you to the students for believing in my ability to represent you. And thank you, Anne Arundel County Board of Education, for giving the students a platform to speak, and for me, the incredible opportunity to speak before you. As always, it has been a pleasure to give you a quick update about what's happening in CRASC. Thank you.
Stay there. Savannah, the lights are lighting up, so I think you're going to hear some comments thanking you above all. And you just made a comment about you being taught and thanking the people who've taught you, but thank you for teaching us over this last year. I remember your first meeting, you were hobbling up on crutches, and it seems just like yesterday, it was Sidney Butcher, now Judge Butcher, asking you who won, and now he's a judge. But you have had an amazing year, and I look forward to seeing you at Northeast. Graduation is on my list this year, so I will be there. And look forward to seeing you there in a cap and gown. But above all, I just want to say thank you for being the CRASC voice. As a CRASC alum, you make me proud, and I look forward to seeing you again one day, continuing to do great things. So thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Ms. Urrea.
I know I'm going to see you more, obviously, but Savannah, I'm also going to your graduation. I cannot wait.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Oh my gosh, you didn't tell me this prior.
I did. I swear I told you. I did, but I just wanted to say that I remember the very first time I met you, and I knew right off the bat that we would be friends because you were not only so nice, but I could see your kindness and your compassionate heart and just how much you loved Northeast High School and how much you brought that to CRASC and how you just shared your love with us. So I know Miss Pilgrim's crying, but I promise I won't cry. But I just cannot say how much I cannot thank you enough for everything you've done and how much I've learned from you as well, not only as a friend, but as a peer and like a mentor and fellow leader. Like, it is so inspiring, and just, I cannot wait for you to go to Penn State and enjoy yourself and just pursue your future passions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Antwine.
Savannah was one of the first students to congratulate me when I was elected to the Board of Education. I won't cry either, but that meant a lot. Coming from the students, understanding the influence that I may have over your next steps, you were humble enough to come to me and welcome me to the board. I've watched you, Savannah, since December. You are graceful. You are highly intelligent. You are eloquent, and you are a champion. You presented issues here that are tough, but you did it with beauty, and you did it in a way that is expected of the sincere and superb person that you are and that you will be at Penn State. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Mrs. Corkadel.
Well, I think they've already said a lot that I definitely echo in sentiment. I think, our student representation is just as every bit important as every single one of us up here. And so you've definitely set a benchmark for success for your successors for many years to come. But I actually hit my button because that's my husband and I met at Penn State.
Really?
So when you said that, I got real excited that we have a whole new generation of excellence going to Happy Valley. So I know you're going to have a great time. And actually, it was one of the applications my daughter had last year, and she decided not to attend there, to my husband's really sadness, but more so than myself. However, I know that you're going to do very well. There are a lot of great opportunities there, and you're going to have an opportunity also to have fun, too. It's a wonderful, unique little town that is built around the success of its university. And so I know you're going to have a great time and great success. But if you ever need any advice on where to go or anything like that, feel free to email, because there's a lot of, the dorms too. I'll just tell you, a lot of our universities have been making a lot of progress. And so I was kind of amazed. I was a chaperone for Happy Volley. My daughter was on the volleyball team, and we would go up there over Memorial Weekend. And I had not been up there, excepting a couple years ago, for a while. And to see all the new dorms that you guys are going to be able to sit in, and they've expanded the campus almost to double. I thought it was a long walk up and down that hill, but you guys also have to cross Atherton and a whole bunch. But I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We've now reached the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It's not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. We have 3 cards tonight. Megan Mosdell, Parker Cross, and Jennifer Sowers.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. My name is Parker Cross, and I'm a junior at Savannah Park High School. March 1st, a day that sadly will always be imprinted into my mind as the date when everything changed. Let's go back a bit. It began after my best friend received multiple detentions and referrals for coming to school high, or better yet, getting high at school. These drugs acted as a mask for his depression and suicidal thoughts. When the time finally did come and the courage and motivation to get clean arrived, the mask began to fall off and suicide was unveiled. To say that he screamed for help was an understatement, and he wasn't the only one screaming. Suicide and the want to die are conversations teens have on a daily basis, and it starts as a joke until it becomes so real that you have to attend your very own best friend's funeral. Right after winter break, months before my friend took his life, I went to my administrator to discuss my own anxiety. I spoke about how I struggled to keep my friend alive every single night. It was by far the hardest thing I had ever experienced, but please know I would do it all over again if I could. But a 16-year-old junior should not feel responsible for someone else's life. This administrator quickly called the student down and got outside resources involved. And yes, those can be helpful. However, this child, my friend, continued to scream. His scream for help was urgent. It was so urgent I made him promise me every single night that I would see him at school the next morning. His scream for help was so loud, and to so many of his friends and teachers, I was not surprised when one day I was called into the hallway by a teacher who had seen marks on his body and was worried. In fact, multiple teachers reported concerning comments and physical marks on my friend, but no one took enough action to stop his pain. When you hear a student say, "I might as well just kill myself," and do nothing, that is part of the problem. The night of the suicide, I was promised that crisis response team would be at the school in support of anyone struggling on that Sunday for a mandatory tech rehearsal for the school show, and that Monday during the school day, and that the school would have additional resources available for anyone in need. Some were available, but it wasn't enough. I was shocked when my family received a call on that Sunday, 2 days after the suicide, stating that CRS was told to stand down. In the weeks following the suicide, I was told multiple times by personnel that no one was available to speak with me and that it would be better if I just went home. Now I have 2 working parents, so going home is not always an option. At one point, I was escorted into an empty conference room where I sat alone sobbing until I could calm myself down. The recommendation for Anne Arundel County Public Schools is 250 students to 1 guidance counselor. At my school and other schools in our county, that ratio is much higher. I hadn't begun to feel as hopeless as my friend until a few weeks after his death. Reaching out for help is hard, but reaching out for help and not having someone there immediately is even harder. Students are suffering. According to Anne Arundel County Department of Health most recent study from 2014 to 2016, the suicide rates per 100,000 by county in Maryland, 5.4 in PG County, 7.2 in Montgomery, 7.6 in Howard, 8.6 in Baltimore City, 9.6 in Frederick, 9.7 in Baltimore County, 10.7 in Anne Arundel County, 12.3 in Hartford, 14.3 in Carroll, and 14.7 in Washington. Now I know that the school cannot fix everything. This is a problem rooted so deep, but hopefully we can join together so no one has to fight this battle alone. And I am not here to place blame. Trust me, if I were, I would be pointing that finger right at myself and thinking, what could I have done differently? I am asking for help from you so we can all work together and make positive change. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Molesdale, and I'm here to follow up on Parker's testimony. We, the students, represented by Our Minds Matter movement, request that the Board of Ed take the following steps. Establish an Anne Arundel County-specific public school crisis response team to execute proactive mental health interventions. If there is a crisis, they should also be automatically deployed, and students should have access to the crisis team anytime they are needed. Develop and implement a stricter standard of reporting procedures to be followed when an ACPS employee suspects any type of mental health concern or incident for a student. Require at least 2 mental health assemblies annually for middle and high school students, which should address coping mechanisms, how to talk about mental health along with suicide, and where to find proper help, as well as guidance counselor advised lessons for elementary schools throughout the given year. And finally, for the Board of Ed to review the structure and workload of individual mental health professionals within AACPS. We ask that these items be added to your next agenda and that action be taken on each immediately. We would appreciate a written update as soon as possible. Time is of the essence, and we have faith in this Board of Education and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Mrs. Ellis.
I want to thank the brave students who came tonight for speaking out about an issue that's very difficult to talk about, but it's a very real concern. And for those of you who are standing up for your fellow students, I believe I speak for all fellow board members when I tell you that we hear you, but I know that you're here for more than to be heard. You want answers. I'm sure many of you are afraid if not for yourselves, then for fellow classmates or both. I can tell you that most board members here are parents, and when we hear tragic news of a student, we hear it as parents first. And it's very difficult, and we all want answers and we all want solutions. While AACPS and this board have been working toward addressing student mental health through training, staff increases in the budget, revisiting policies affecting things like class rank and school hours, we all must recognize that this is a very complicated issue, and the cause of student mental health struggles, including depression, anxiety, substance abuse, violent behavior, suicidal ideation, and suicidal acts, likely cannot be found in one place and certainly cannot be blamed on the school system alone. For those that read education and psychology journals like myself, and even just mainstream media, we also must recognize that the increase in student mental health issues is a nationwide epidemic. That being said, we cannot deny that some of the factors leading to these concerns are likely found within the walls of our schools. It is time to take a hard look at what is going on and seek answers with the goal of finding real solutions. And by solutions, I mean not only more effective identification and support for troubled students, but to begin to greatly reduce the start of these problems in the first place. I would like to propose to my fellow board members that we commission a task force, perhaps in partnership with the Department of Health if they're willing, to study this issue. This task force should be comprised of students, parents, area mental health professionals, AACPS guidance counselors, certainly a representative of the crisis response team. This list is not all-inclusive, but it's a start in my vision for what this task force should be. This board can give it some thought, and then I propose that at our next meeting, we develop a complete list of who should be on this task force and vote on the creation of this task force to be assembled and begin their work as soon as possible. I sincerely hope my fellow board members are in agreement and that we need to look at this issue from all sides and begin to develop solutions that will likely involve policy changes, greater staffing increases, as well as parent and community involvement, among other things. Yes, this is a nationwide issue, but we have a duty to our students here in Anne Arundel County, and Anne Arundel County should become a leader in reversing this tragic trend. So I hope you all will consider.
Ms. Ellis, we'll have an agenda item, what is it, May 15th? Mrs. Schallheim.
Yeah, I definitely second you as well. Thank you for your bravery in coming to speak with us tonight. I echo a lot of what Mrs. Ellis already stated. I know we can do better. I know it doesn't start and stop all the way with us as a school system, but we can be leaders in helping to solve problems, and I intend to do that in collaboration with my board colleagues. I have a question about the crisis response being told to stand down, and I'm hopeful that Dr. Arlotto can help me understand if that did occur, why, and do you have any details around that?
I have none.
Okay, can we find out, because I think that unfortunately I think it takes something horrible it takes something horrible that occurs for us to maybe revisit how things are done, and I would love to know if there's something that we can do at the board level that's a more standardized is not the right word, but that when these things happen, that a certain minimum occurs at each school. I know we've talked about this privately.
It does.
Yeah.
A minimum, absolutely, it does already.
Okay.
Those pieces are in place.
Okay. Yeah. I just, if they were told to stand down, I just want to know if that did happen. If you can report back to us if it did, and if it did, by whom and why. I don't know. I think there's just some lingering questions. I know we talked about some of the stuff in our last meeting. I just have lingering questions because the students, at least some of them, seem to feel like there wasn't enough, and if there wasn't I mean, I want to do more all day long, you know? So I just, if there's an opportunity for us to do more or different, or, I don't know, I would like to explore that.
Sure. So I will, next week, Mrs. Jackson and I are meeting with, excuse me, the two directors of the Mobile Crisis Unit, and making sure that everybody understands the Mobile Crisis Unit is not part of AACPS. It's part of the county resources and the county police department. But we'll be meeting with them. We have we've reached out and asked them to meet with us so we can talk about some of these issues, and I think that's next Thursday. Not sure, but maybe Tuesday. Yes. Yeah, we'll be meeting with them next week to talk further. I want to learn more about that as well.
Wonderful. And I think the idea to have a crisis response team that's solely ours, it's the school systems, is a wonderful one. And I want to address all the other requests that were laid out so eloquently. Thank you. Much more than I'm able to articulate. But I would like to talk about these things in our next meeting and see what we can do to be helpful.
And I would then encourage this board, as you're talking with members of the county council, as well as our students and parents and others that care about this subject, that they make sure their voices are heard with the county councils. The county councils go through the process of finalizing our budget, what was released by the county executive today, and then into the future, because that would be something the county as a whole would have to pick up to create additional crisis response teams. There's a single team that serves the entire county. So to add teams and dedicate a team to just the school system, love the idea. We would absolutely support it, but we have to have the county council and the county executive support that as well and build it into their budget.
Yes, absolutely. And to that end, bring what you've said here and more of you, and go to the budget hearings. They're on May 9th and May 13th. And one is at the Arundel Center. The other one, I think the 13th one, is at North County High School. And, you know, that's all fight for more services. And because I hear you, and I do react to everything as a parent first as well, and it breaks my heart. So yeah, thank you for being so brave and coming.
I think you guys are great for being here. Thank you. Thank you for standing up for what it is you guys really believe in, what you think is important for your community and your fellow students. Megan and Parker, before you guys leave, would you meet with Mrs. Jackson, Dr. Lucarelli, so they can get some more information from you and we can talk about how we can get together in the future? Would you all do that before you leave? Outstanding. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Sowers. I'm the Executive Director for Anne Arundel County Parent Coalition. I have spoken here many times, as most of you know. Each time I ask for what I think would be in the best interest of our community and our children. Tonight I stand before you seeking action. Immediate, swift, and meaningful action. We are on the same page, ladies, with everything that you just spoke about. And for those of you that have left or are coming back, or you be sure to play this back later, especially the testimony that was earlier from Ms. Antwine. So the heartbreaking fact is that Anne Arundel County has lost 2 of our students to suicide in the last few months. The steady rise of self-harm, attempted suicide, and suicide in our county is unacceptable. Many of you that are elected members campaigned on a platform of change. This is your call to action. These issues presented to you tonight are life and death. The Anne Arundel County Crisis Response Team can no longer be arbitrarily turned away by principals, and children potentially suffering abuse at home can no longer be withheld resources based on parents' approval. Both of these facts have been ascertained from Jen Corbin with the Crisis Response Team. She has stated multiple times that she is not allowed into a building without an invitation, and she is not allowed to speak to a child without the parent's consent. So that needs to be changed. Now, with that in mind, tonight I ask that we work together to find a solution. We all know that funding is a major concern. The demands of these brave teens behind me tonight take into consideration that funding. Number 1, establishing 4 mobile crisis response teams that are overseen and paid for by the Board of Education will eliminate the need for approval to enter schools, approvals to communicate with students, and will allow consistent, proactive initiatives to be executed by each team. Number 2, establishing a committee of third-party licensed mental health professionals to establish standard operating procedures is paramount. These are to be volunteer positions, as many of the other committees are in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. It is imperative that these licensed professionals be tasked with developing the standards for reporting suspected mental health concerns for students and evaluate the current structure, workload, and effectiveness of mental health professionals within AACPS. The fact that we may have more money on the table, we need to make sure that the current money that we're spending is being done in the most effective manner possible. Their recommendations on developing and implementing a strict protocol for Anne Arundel County's response and resources that are deployed after a suicide is also crucial. At this time, I asked for one of you to propose adding these items to your next agenda, which I think you've already done, correct? And for an immediate vote at that time. Many of you have campaigned on bringing change to the schools. While I appreciate your time this evening, I would appreciate even more if you took action to save our children. We will be following up with Dr. Arlotto at our May 8th meeting on all of the progress. We look forward to working together to make some changes and ensuring the safety of our students. Thank you.
Ms. Antwine.
Ms. Sowers, thank you for your testimony and thank you for your work, especially on anti-bullying. I want to make a correction that I heard earlier, that there's some insinuation that we are not paying attention to these testimonies. Even if we're in that back room, we are definitely able, through our superb audio-visual team, to hear those testimonies. So thank you for that.
Ms. Schallheim.
Thank you for your testimony. I really appreciate it. I do have a question for Dr. Arlotto regarding the crisis response teams and their ability to talk with students. I think we touched on that. We touched on a lot of things, though, in our last meeting, so forgive me, but can you remind me, are those teams allowed to, do they need consent from a parent to talk to a student if they're invited? And if you are inviting them in, do they need a subsequent invitation from the principal?
I'm not sure that I understand your question.
Okay.
So the crisis response team doesn't work for us.
I know.
Right. Crisis response works for the county. They are a county resource that we take advantage of when we need it, and that they're available. Right. There are times where we could call them and they are just not available because they are a single team, and there could be something going on in one of our communities anywhere in the county. And so we have our own trauma teams that are built around the county that can be deployed at a moment's notice. So we have trauma teams of counselors and social workers and school psychologists, as well as central office team that can be deployed when we have an emergency situation at a school involving a student or involving an adult. And so it is that trauma team. We send in a small team that goes in and analyzes the situation. They get a feel for what's needed, and then they call in the trauma team. We put them on alert as soon as we know in advance. When many of these unfortunate incidents happen involving our students and staff, they don't happen during work hours. They happen in the middle of the night. And so when we get contacted, our phone tree, our text tree goes out from the team, and I'm contacted in the middle of the night, and we immediately contact the trauma team to put them on alert and what school they're going to be going to and what we know at the time. We're also talking to the fire, EMS, and police department to get updates and any information they can share with us. We then send in a team that does an analysis, and we see what we can work with. So most of our team will work with students, where when the need is, and we bring in the mobile crisis team, they'll work with adults That's typically how we divide and conquer, is Jen Corbin, her team will work with adults. So a staff member that is totally distraught by the loss of a child, which we have had recently, they'll work with the adults, and we work primarily with the students. There are times where that will cross, but that's basically the division of work. We are trained to work with those children. Our school psychologists and counselors will work with the students in need, while the crisis team will work with the adults in need.
And if the crisis team were to interact with students, do they need parental consent to do so?
That's the first I've heard of it. So you heard something that I heard for the first time
Cool.
from Ms. Sowers.
All right.
So I will be, again, questions that I've been hearing. Ms. Sowers has not been short of sending emails to give us lots of information. Am I right? Right? And so I have all of those in a stack. The file is growing. I asked her if she would meet with me, and she has agreed with her team to meet next week. We're going to talk about many of those issues. She's also brought up some issues that I'll be able to talk directly with the mobile crisis directors.
Perfect. And can you follow up with all of us during your superintendent's update on the May 15th, during the May 15th meeting? Because I would love to know some of the answers to some of my questions. And for all those viewing out there on the telly, it would just be helpful for them to know especially the answer of, if the school was, if any teams were turned away or told to stand down, and then what the parental consent, if it's needed and under what circumstances. I would love to know as part of your meeting.
I will deliver some update as I think best fits. I'll make no promises about exactly what that's going to entail, but I will absolutely bring some updates based on some of the information that was shared this evening.
Yeah, I would love it. And thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other board questions at this point? Seeing none, I know Ms. Urrea wanted to make a comment, but she was pulled out into the lobby. So we may suspend when she comes back, just so she can make a follow-up comment, if the board would be okay with that. But right now, we'll move to our consent calendar. We've got items 4.01 through 4.03. Is there a motion to bundle these? And second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Dr. Arlotto, we now have bundled items. Can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of the contracts as listed on today's agenda, 4.01, 4.02, and 4.03.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Thank you. We've got some board questions at this point. Mr. Schallheim.
Thank you so much. I have a question about item 4.01, the award of contract for frozen canned and packaged foods. I was looking at the documentation that came with our yellow sheet, and there's a lot of blank spaces. And so did the other companies that did not get the award, did they just not choose to provide any pricing? Or if they did provide some pricing, it's definitely not filled in here, so I'm just curious. Oh, hello.
Certainly, Alex Shacknowitz, Chief Operating Officer. If you take a look at page 2 of your exhibit, you'll notice at the bottom an asterisk, and the asterisk indicates that the bids from the firms that you previously referenced were rejected because they did not bid on the required food items. So if a vendor is rejected, we explain to them, why. We also offer to have a briefing with them after the fact, just to make sure that they clearly understand what the matter was, and so that they can improve their bidding proficiency the next time something comes around.
So then,
But they were non-responsive. So you are either non-responsible under the eyes of the law, or you're non-responsive. They were categorized as not responsive to the technical deliverables that were mandated by the bid documents.
okay, thank you. And so, because it looks like only one of 4 did the work requested, are we still within our procurement policies? Because you only really had one that did all the work, and so do we have to then go back and ask for others to do the 3 that might be needed under this threshold of money, or?
No. So this was analyzed by our purchasing officer, and the results do comport with the procurement elements of COMAR and our board policy and regs. It's important also to note that Dory is the incumbent and has been performing successfully for us for a good many years at a high volume business. So we know that they are both competitive and responsive.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Ms. Antwine.
Thank you. I had a question on 4.01 concerning that. I was wondering if the other bidders, they weren't responsive because they were unable to do the work. Did it show that, or did it show that they just omitted something? And if it's an omission, were they given the opportunity to cure the situation?
So the ability to cure a defect in a bid under the state education article of procurement regulations is extremely limited. Things that you cannot cure are things like price, like quantity. So there are things that you cannot cure under the state law. I'll just call them omissions, were essentially on the list of things that they are not allowed to cure in a bid.
Okay. So, and the question was coming from the fact that there were 4 bidders that could potentially compete, and 3 of the 4 just kind of didn't answer the call because of some omission. So thank you for that clarification. I also wanted to know if there were plans then, if it went back down to 1 and we had 3 that didn't quite, for whatever reason, did not include what they could or couldn't do, or were there plans to just recompete it before we do the award?
No, again, well, to begin with, the solicitation was sent out to 98 vendors. So out of 98 qualified vendors, only 4 elected to participate, and 27 of those 98 vendors were in fact MSBE candidates as well. So out of that universe of potentially capable and successful vendors, only 4 elected to even submit a bid to start with, and then only 1 of those 4 met the test of responsiveness and responsibleness.
Makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then on 4.03, software licenses for a typing club, I wanted to understand, is this an opportunity for students within the normal school hours where they're taking a class, or is this something like extra enrichment?
Sure. So Typing Club is just the name of the product. It's just like Chevy or Ford or Buick or Lithonia Lights. So Typing Club is just the name of the product. It is, as you can see from the attached determination, it is an item that is used as part of the curriculum. This allows students under the supervision of teachers to practice their keyboarding skills. Certainly the vast majority of that likely occurs inside of the instructional day, but I can well imagine that for extended help days or things like that, some of these activities are available to them as well.
Right.
We've purchased it. We're not limited to the hours of use, so if a co-curricular club or a faculty member wants to use it after hours, that's perfectly suitable.
I was just thinking about the students that may even want to go home and utilize it if they would have access to it and
Well, that I don't know the direct answer to.
Okay.
That is very specific to determine conditions of use. Most of the software products are only licensed to us. They can only be used on our machinery under certain term and conditions. When we purchase them, you purchase only X amount of seat licenses, for example. I don't know the answer specific to this one. I'm giving you a more generic answer, but absent it be purposely bid that way, and we don't typically do that, largely for cost control as well, but the term and conditions and the software licensing agreements in many cases do not permit us to send that software home to have somebody install it on their own personal machine.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Schallheim.
Just to piggyback on that, but there are, so I understand that this could likely just be used on our equipment, I get it. Are there resources that, and this is just out of curiosity, that students can use at home that you're aware of, free resources for specifically to use to learn how to type? That sometimes the teacher sends home like extra resources. Like you
Right.
might want to do all these things during your summer to keep up on your skills, et cetera. Is there a typing one that you know about?
Again, I personally don't know that. I'm not as close to that side of the house as maybe I should be. That being said, in this wonderful day of Google and the internet, I'm sure there are many freeware products that are out there that you can practice your typing and spelling skills, et cetera.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any further board questions on the bundled package? Any public comment? Seeing none. Mrs. Connolly, this is a vote on our consent calendar.
Beginning with Ms. Corkadel this evening. Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Live?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
And Mr. Gilliland.
Aye.
That's 8-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Before we move to personnel appointments, I just wanted to sort of go back and give Mr. Urrea a moment to say a few words on the earlier topic.
Thank you. Not to make this any longer than it needs to be. I stepped out just because those students as well go to Savannah Park High School just like me. So it kind of hits home what they said. But I just want to say just an overall arching thing that I reached out to them because mental health is also a very important issue to me as well, not only as a board member, but as a student. And I want to assure everybody that's watching our whole 300 views that Anne Arundel County, I know, will continue to always better ourselves in that aspect. Because I know when working with Dr. Arlotto and fellow board members that safety of students and their love of school and their well-being within the classroom is always a priority of ours. So I understand that it's difficult for many people to always know all the information and very hard for us to convey all the information sometimes, whether or not it be that we're not allowed to or that it's just so much information for students to handle. But I know that every day we are continuing to get better in that aspect. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Urrea. We'll now resume with item 5.01, which is administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlotto, do you have a recommendation, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I recommend the board, I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and/or appointed.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any board comments? Seeing none. Mrs. Connolly, would you please call the roll on personnel?
Ms. Corkadel? Aye. Ms. Hummer? Aye. Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Live?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think you hit the mic, but there you go. Okay. Okay, motion carries. Item 5.02 is personnel. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, and we have a couple of comments. Mrs. Hummer.
So this time of year is always a little bittersweet because we get the personnel things and we get to see who's retiring, and we always we welcome and celebrate our new teachers we hire every year, but we have some amazing master teachers that are leaving. And so I looked through the list of just this list we have this week. We have 24 people with over 30 years experience that are retiring, and we have 5 with more than 40 years experience. They have been serving students for decades, and they will be missed because that is a great wealth of experience and dedication. And so I know we will get excellent, wonderful new teachers in, but thank you to all the veteran teachers who have devoted their lives and careers to teaching in general and to Anne Arundel County Public Schools.
Mr. Live.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just make a note of the retirements. It's 1,577 years of experience. Wow. That's how much it hit home. And as Ms. Hummer said, you know, I singled out a few as well. Gazella, I'm going to say this wrong, Olawatabi, Arundel Middle School, 43.4 years, Family and Consumer Science. Diane Schwartz, 40.5 years, George Fox Middle, Special Ed. 48. And Barry Hopkins, 43 years, Savannah Park High School, physics. I mean, we owe so much to our teachers for making things possible for our children, and parents, we just can never thank you enough. So, thank you.
I saw you over there counting with your fingers. Now I know what you were doing, so.
Count to 1,000 on your finger.
Miss Antwine.
So I just want to congratulate those teachers who are moving on into retirement. Well deserved. It's not easy to get up every day and face so much that I'm sure you have stories and information on. Having a house full of educators myself, I understand that sacrifice, and I commend you and thank you sincerely for your service. I had a question, though, if we could, on I think this is the first time we've had to deal with terminations, and I was wondering if we could, before we move to that, get more information on those terminations and do that separately from these appointments.
You'll have to clarify for me. What is it that you would like information on?
So it's my understanding that these would be at the end of the school year, so I wanted the time maybe in closed sessions to understand why that set of administrators were being terminated.
You mean school personnel?
Personnel, I'm sorry.
I'm glad to have a confidential conversation with the board.
If that's okay, and could we just wait on the vote on the terminations, or we have to move forward now?
Generalize that they're non-tenured.
I don't have the specifics on each one of the folks in front of me to share. I certainly would share that in public, but many of these. No, I won't say that. So I don't have any information in front of me on the individuals.
And keep in mind, I'm not requesting it to be public, but I would before I give a support to that, I would want to better understand why.
Well, and the majority of them, as you see, their time with us has to do with tenure. And before they are tenured, they're all within under 3 years. So those are determinations that this administration and this board get to make. And I would not recommend that the board delay this, but it'll be up to the board.
If I may, Ms. Antwine, as well, the various negotiated agreements do have activity deadlines by which we must notify a candidate, we must bring in action, we must ratify that action, et cetera. And if we miss those deadlines in some cases, you might risk having to employ somebody for another year that you may not have wished to have done that. So they are carefully vetted. Ms. Cutchess is behind me, but we have a multidisciplinary team that meets for a number of days to review each and every one of these cases to make sure that all of the required elements have been completed before that recommendation is moved forward to the superintendent. That team has, what, about eight to 10 multidisciplinary individuals, so there's a lot of set of eyes, including legal, HR, budget, et cetera. So it's a very rigid, organized process because we know it can become very litigious, and because of that, it's a highly structured process, and it's done exactly the way that the education article and the negotiated agreements require us to conduct that.
So my personal request that it be delayed isn't necessarily because of the work or failure on any of your parts. We normally get rationale, though, when we make these decisions so we can make informed decisions. And in this case, we just got a set of names. So I would prefer, before I make that decision, to understand why, and that is all.
Yes, ma'am.
But
Okay.
if it interferes with negotiations or whatever the case is in those deadlines, then I'll digress. But if it doesn't, and we can do it within the next 2 weeks, I would prefer that.
Give us 1 second. We're going to do a quick recess, move in the back, but for personnel purposes. But when we make the motion, of course, It's a paragraph-long verbiage that none of us have memorized, so I want to make sure we read it appropriately, and then we'll have that motion. So just give us a second. Yeah.
Discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. The ayes have it. We stand in recess. Right, the board will now reconvene. And again, for those in the audience, thank you for your patience with us as we just clarified some of the terminology here. At this point, we still have a motion on the floor that is to approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets. Are there any further board questions at this point? Seeing none. Mrs. Connolly, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Live?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
And Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 5.03, which is Ethics and Conflict of Interest, Policy BAF. It is on third reading for final approval. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of policy BAF, subject to final correction for style and format.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Lai? No, okay. Any board questions or comments at this point? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, Mrs. Connolly, policy BAF is on third reading for final approval. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Corkadel? Aye. Ms. Hummer? Aye. Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Live?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
And Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
If I may, I wanted to provide just a quick comment on some previous comments.
Sure.
So for the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. So I was listening in on the public comment portion of the meeting, and I heard some of the public comments by our students and board members, and I just wanted to bring to your attention that, you know, this is the issue of mental and behavioral health is something that we are always looking at and working on, and Dr. Arlotto mentioned this and Josie a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to point out that we do have policies and regulations dealing with a lot of these issues, and actually I've been working with staff to further supplement current policies and procedures in accordance with the Maryland Safe to Learn Act that passed last session in 2018, and Dr. Arlotto actually participated on a state work group, as did AACPS staff. And so we've been further updating our policies and procedures to reflect the changes in that law and guidelines that were presented by MSDE. And I just want to note that Anne Arundel County Public Schools was very supportive of that legislation, and I was very involved in drafting it and revising it to best meet the needs of our schools and our students. And so it deals with public safety, but also student behavioral health. And so that's something that will be coming to the board. And a lot of the things that were mentioned earlier with regards to procedures are things that we either currently have in place or are working on to further implement. So I just wanted to point that out.
Mrs. Schallheim.
I don't expect you to know all the codes of all the policies off the top of your head, but if you happen to know some I can reference to look up.
Sure. Yes, and so policy GAD, it's a long name, so it's confidential communication of at-risk student behaviors. That is more for staff and what staff procedures and what they need to do with various at-risk student behaviors, including suicidal thoughts and gestures and harm to others. And so this new policy and regulation that we're required to adopt in accordance with MSDE guidelines will pull out some of the information in GAD and GAD-RA and create a standalone policy dealing with student behavioral threat assessments in accordance with the guidelines established. So that's why I mentioned we are kind of ahead of the curve in that we have a lot of that stuff already in our policies and procedures. And so the new policy is pulling out some of the things that we already have in existence, and then also adding additional information that were in guidelines that was established by MSDE in the work group that Dr. Arlotto and AACPS staff participated in. And that's actually going before the policy committee at the next meeting. So.
Perfect. And so that one encompasses all of these things. Are there others? And if there are, I don't expect to know all of them.
So
now.
we have other policies, and I believe it's like in the E's code, dealing with emergency circumstances and things like that. And we also have like internal guidelines and manuals to deal with emergency situations. So you have our Office of School Security, for example, Student Support Services, and others that are already involved. So we're doing a lot of those things already.
Awesome.
If
so
not all of them.
When I go to the Google search on the policy page of our AACPS do you think I can get to that second one by typing in emergency circumstances? Like what would you choose as like a keyword? Because I'm totally interested in reading all this
I'm
stuff.
blanking. I think it's emergency. It's emergency something, but I can send it to Ms. Connolly so she can share it with,
Thank you
with
so
the board.
much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Ms. Urrea.
Hi, Ms. Ortiz. I just want to thank you very much for saying that. Means a lot, and just great input as well. And I also wanted to say, I know your daughter goes to Savannah Park High School, so I hope in light of everything, she's enjoying it. So thank you.
Oh, she loves it. She loves
Good.
Savannah Park High School, and she transitioned over this past school year from 9 years of Catholic school to public school. So we're a little, I was a little worried as a mom and going to like a class of 50-something to a larger class, but it's been a wonderful transition.
Really?
She loves it. Her teachers are wonderful. The administration has been great, and she has had some friends that were already there and has made new friends, and all her teachers said, would have never guessed she was new this year, because these kids, it's like they've known her whole life. So it's been AACPS
That's wonderful
awesome,
to
for
hear.
sure. Hey, Isabella, I know you're watching.
Hi, Isabella.
Oh, she's going to be mad now.
Any further questions for Ms. Ortiz? Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me. I just wanted to make sure that folks are aware that these are things that we already have been working on, and we're working to make even stronger and provide even more support for our students and staff.
It's very appropriate.
Thank you.
We'll now move to other action items. Item 5.04 is meal pricing for the 2019-2020 school year. It's an information to action item. Can we have a motion to move this from information to action, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We now have an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. I recommend no increase in the food and nutrition services pricing for the 2019-2020 school year.
Is there a motion?
I so move.
A second?
Second.
All right, great. We now have staff here to answer questions. There's no formal presentation. Unless you wanted to just highlight anything at this point, we'll move to questions. I had one, but there are some others that wanted to ask questions as well. Mrs. Schallheim.
First, I want to say thank you. This is incredible. And was there anything in particular that made this possible? Knowing that generally speaking, costs rise over time, how are you able to hold it down for next year?
Let me start with that. I'm Alex Chakno, Chief Operating Officer. The answer is we have the best food and nutrition services team around. Ms. Rissy and her team are incredible at what they do. Literally, the phrase "watch every penny" applies to them more so than anyone else. Remember that heretofore they've not received any county funding. They are only funded by federal resources, state resources, and the sales of their consumables and other food products. So they literally have to watch each and every penny. They do and have received increases in federal subsidies or state subsidies in the years that either the feds or the state government has elected to do so. That has helped them to some extent, but the vast majority of it really is watching every single penny that they do. And then selling the, the a la carte items and things like that helps them recover some revenue. But it all goes back to the awesome FNS team.
Very awesome. I have one question about locally sourced and organics, things like that. Can you tell me if I assume that the movement is to secure more from local vendors? Can you speak to that at all?
I sure can. For the record, I'm Jody Rissy, Supervisor of Food and Nutrition Services. Thank you for the compliment, and it's really the great team that I have. They are phenomenal. The truly we are better together implies definitely with all of our staff. I have about 500 staff out in the schools. There's 13 next door, and they really are all awesome. And the support that I get from the team and Dr. Arlotto and Mr. Shakinovich is always unbelievable. So it makes it very easy. Local sourcing, I would love to talk about it. We actually hosted the United States Department of Agriculture today. It's called Produce University. It's a week-long intense training, and they came to Anne Arundel County all because of our local sourcing. So we entertained them at North County High School. They were able to see our lunch service, all of our fruit and vegetable bars, and our students are able to take, upwards of, they fill half of their tray, but they could take between 8 and 15. We offer between 8 and 15 fruits and vegetables a day. Today we had local asparagus. It was both roasted and it was fresh on the salad bar. They then went down to the garden. They were able to see the bees, the shiitake mushrooms. They saw all of the new plantings. And then we drove them for 45 minutes down to Schlegel Farms, and he is one of our growers. So last year alone, we bought, I believe it was over 2,000 cases of local produce from him. So he does all of our local butternut squash, our acorn squash, our peppers, our pumpkin, strawberries, green peppers, and cabbage. So local has gone, we increase every year. We post it online. It's very transparent. We work with our produce distribution center. We use design and print services all the time, so we do Tasting of the Rainbow the first Friday of every month. It's always a local, or it tends to be local. So we showcase the farmer, we showcase the item, and we showcase our children.
And we partner with the County Office of Economic Development. AEDC has an agricultural unit, and Ms. Rissy and her group works collaboratively with the county agricultural units in terms of outreach, making sure that they spread the business opportunities that we have here. And we are very aggressive in terms of when it goes to bidding and procuring those items to make sure that the local presence is fully aware of the opportunities here.
That's really, really cool. And are the local growers generally conventional or organic practices but not certified? Because I know that that's a lot of money, or some of them USDA organic.
They're all GAP certified, for sure. We don't purchase unless it's GAP certified. Capital Seaboard is our produce distribution. They require that, as do we as a county. They are not organic. Our volume is huge. And they're not only providing for us, they're providing retail as well as other school districts. But we look at about a 250-mile radius. So we have a lot of partnerships with a lot of farmers. And it's just a great way to really, give our students the best that they can have and really help the business model at the same time for them.
Awesome work. Incredible. I'm very grateful. I know my daughter loves her meals at school. She begged me last year, and I said no this year. She's a big second grader, so she's been buying every single day, and I've never heard a complaint ever. She loves it. So
thank her on our behalf.
You do.
Going to Folger tomorrow for lunch.
There you go.
Mrs. Hummer.
So over the summer, I had the pleasure of visiting several sites where you bring the summer meals each time. And also Schlegel Farms with the Farmers Market at Brooklyn Park, which is a fabulous partnership bringing in our families to have there. Love it. I know that you always have a very aggressive goal for how many meals you're going to provide in the summertime. What's your goal for this year, Ms.
150,000.
150,000. She wants to increase by 50%. Are we adding more sites this summer?
We are. I think we're going to really focus on more, especially our remote sites. As you mentioned, we love our mobile meal sites, so we're trying to maybe restructure them a little bit better and go into the communities a little bit further, or a different location once we're in there. And really with the farmers market, we're really hoping that has done so well the last year, and this is our 4th consecutive year, that we can really increase the amount of participation at Brooklyn Park Middle.
And remember, the farmers market, Ms. Hummer, is not us. It's tremendous partnerships. It's us, the libraries, fire department, health department, social services. I mean, the entire county has really glommed on to the farmers market, and it's really become
It's an
a
event.
critical civic, support element in the Brooklyn
It's an
Park area.
event.
It's an
Yes,
event.
anybody who's never been, there are activities for the kids.
Right.
There is wonderful, fabulous produce. There's always something going on.
And
So
she
it
has a
really
new
is an
trick
event.
up her sleeve for this summer, but we can't let the cat out of the bag.
And I
now
think
I'm
it's a
intrigued.
destination. It's better than Disney, right?
is. It
When you go
is.
there, how do you? It's fantastic.
And much cheaper than Disney, yes, but we load up, so it's kind of, I love the how innovative you always
Thank you.
are, but also too, it is so incredible for our families that these prices have not raised. How many years in a row are we now?
This is our 6th.
6 years without raising. That is such a boom because we have many families that are, that this makes a huge difference for them, for the price. And so thank you for all you're doing for the children of this county. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Summer. Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. How long have you been with us with AAC?
25 years.
Oh, wow.
So I've been supervisor since 2007.
Okay. So I'm just curious, have you seen a trend over the years as far as the choices the students are making with the choices they're offered? Are they making healthier choices? Do you have any observation there?
Sure. As a registered dietitian and a mom of 2 students in Anne Arundel County, I've been part of the menu process since day one. So I was one of the original registered dietitians. We now have 4 on staff, so we really are very heavily invested in the nutrition and what we provide our students. So we still, we look at trends. We constantly change the menu. Our participation continues to rise, even when, across the country you heard about school meals and their participation going down. We did not. We continue to rise. So I think it's really colorful. Our fruits and vegetables, I think, are amazing. The amount of entree salads that our students eat continue to go up. So I just think we provided them the best nutrition possible to keep them fueled, and they're coming and enjoying it. And the more we market it, the more they come.
And I think the other thing, Ms. Ellis, is remember the Food Nutrition Service is one of the wedges on the wellness wheel as well. So whereas maybe we would have thought about food nutrition in isolation, it's very much more a 360 endeavor with those options and discussions happening throughout the curriculum, not just the posters and the lunch line, et cetera. So I think there's a heightened sense of awareness and intentionally focused education around the whole topic, and I think that's dovetailing wonderfully with the services that FNS provides.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I think when we're able to introduce new food items as well, I think the excitement that we can create in the schoolhouse goes home, right? So if they go home and they ask mom and dad, well, I'd love cauliflower, can I try butternut squash again? It's really, we're educating the community at large and really making everyone healthier based off what we're doing in our schools.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I have one question I wanted to ask, but, again, first, just to say thank you. I think my colleagues have highlighted a lot of the success you've had here and what you do, the steps you take to keep prices level, even with rising costs, as Mrs. Schallheim said. But I know a lot of the work that you do that's not happening during the day, and it's supporting, some of the students that don't eat at home and don't eat on the weekends. And I know what you do during the summer to support the Mobile Meals Program, and you're extremely supportive of a nonprofit that I've got some affiliation with and helping to feed students in North County. And that's the stuff that doesn't make the paper. That's the stuff that doesn't get accolades. And for many reasons, we understand why. But I know what you do. We know what you do. And I just can't say thank you enough for making a real difference for students and families. My one question, and Mr. Shaknovich, I'll turn to you. You can either tell me to wait until later or now. One of the, and when I say later, the budget information at item 6.01, I know with the styrofoam tray ban, if you will, that added cost to the school system. I know during our budget process in February there was an amendment, I think it was amendment number 81, if memory serves me correctly, that we added 1.3 million roughly. That was shared. It was a 50-50 split, I believe. Was that funded today by the county executive?
So the cost was about just a little bit north of $450,000, and you are going to get the details of that here in a little bit. But the county executive has recommended fully funding the incremental or differential cost increase for the organic-based product trays over the polystyrene trays. So should the county executive's budget be adopted as he has proposed, then that item will be financially covered, and we will not suffer an unfunded mandate.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Any public comment? Seeing none, Mrs. Connolly, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Ms.
I'm so excited. Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Thanks again, aye.
Mr. Lod?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
Thank you, and thank you both. Where are we? Item 5.05 is the Quarterfield Elementary School Ed specs. Dr. Arlotto, this is an action item. Can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, I recommend board approval of the Corkadel Elementary School educational specifications.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second. Great, we have a motion and a second, and there is a staff presentation.
Good evening, President Gilliland, Vice President Urrea, members of the board, Dr. Arlotto. I'm Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities. And with me I have
Kyle Roof, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
Mary Patz, Lead Architect.
the next three items presented will be the educational specifications for Quarterfield, Hillsmere, and Rippling Woods Elementary Schools. Educational specifications are the first step in the design process for a major capital project. These documents outline the proposed educational programs, activities, area requirements, and performance expectations of the proposed capital project. The feasibility studies will be based on these ed specs. Volume 1 of the two volumes contains components that apply to all elementary schools. It's divided into 4 sections. Section 1 describes goals and driving values outlined in the strategic plan. Section 2 provides a general description of the proposed site requirements and building systems. Section 3 provides a table of adjacencies for programmatic and support spaces. For example, you wouldn't want to put a music room next to the media center. Section 4 describes the activity areas of the schools and data sheets for spaces that include information on size, finishes, mechanical and electrical requirements, as well as furniture and fixtures. Volume 2, which is Section 5 and 6, includes items specific to a particular school. So we'll start with Quarterfield. Quarterfield was built in 1969 with little renovations over the years. The enrollment projections in the 2018 master plan are showing an increase in student population, so the proposed state-graded capacity, or SRC, of a new or renovated school would be 585. The scope of work, budget, and schedule are included in Section 5. If constructing a replacement school, we are projecting a building size of approximately 84,000 square feet, with a budget cost estimate of $39 million. If funded as reflected in our 6-year plan, the project will be complete in August 2023. Section 6 is a summary of spatial requirements showing all areas programmed for the school, including the type and quantity. The community use portion of the building, before and after care, and the extended gym is shown separately. The total square footage summary is reflected at the end of the chart. So that's information on Quarterfield. Happy to answer any questions.
If I may, I know we have one question now. What I was going to ask, if this makes it easier for you and simplifies, we can go through all three and then we'll just do the separate votes.
Yeah,
we probably should have bundled, but we'll just hear one presentation and then we'll do 2 votes after the Quarterfield vote. Mr. Schallheim, do you want to ask a question now, or what's best for you?
I have a lot to ask. So I don't really mind if some of my questions have to do with all 3. So I'm perfectly happy to hold my questions till the end of the presentation. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The next ed specs, Hillsmere Elementary. Hillsmere was constructed in 1967. With the opening of Monarch Annapolis in 2017-2018 school year, resulted in a decline in enrollment according to the 2018 master plan approved in July 2018. Since the approval of the master plan, the actual September 30th, 2000 enrollment indicates an increase in students. Because the site contains critical areas and will impact the size of the school and adjacent schools have some capacity, the SRC is still reflected as 461. As the process moves forward, we will monitor and make adjustments if necessary. The square footage of a replacement school would be approximately 65,000 square feet, and the budget estimate is $33 million. And the schedule also reflects an August 2023 opening. Once again, the summary of spatial requirements for this specific school is shown in the section 6 with a square footage summary at the end. Rippling Woods is next. It was built in 1974 and it is one of our open plan schools. The proposed state rated capacity will be 775, which includes a 30-student regional special education / alternative education program. The proposed square footage would be approximately 100,000 square feet, and the budget estimate is $53 million and would be complete in August 2023. The summary table at the end indicates the square footage separately for the regional program and Parks and Recs requirements. So, I'm happy to answer questions on.
Thank you so much for the detailed overview. Mrs. Schallheim.
Firstly, thank you for all this wonderful information. I'll admit this was my first rodeo reading stuff like this, but my background prior to having a child was energy efficiency and renewables, and I also have an HVAC background too, so this was really cool to see. My first comment was, though, I thought I read at the beginning of the Quarterfield Elementary Educational Specification that this highlighted some changes. So I wanted to know, is the whole document a change, or because we don't have the benefit of like track changes, what specifically was highlighted? And I would recommend that if there are like just little things going forward, it would be great to see that sort of in a track changes sort of format, just so we don't have to, you know, if some of this language is standard but some of it isn't, then that would be great to see. That was my first question. But I have lots of more questions after that.
I could probably address that. So the original elementary ed spec was approved in October 2004, and that's a lifetime ago when it comes to the design of our elementary, all of our schools. So you're right, we do not have track changes, but what we do is we update it as codes change. For example, the acoustical requirements have changed in recent years. We update it as the energy codes change, as LEED requirements came in for new buildings from the state, and even those are being modified now. So there has been I'd be happy to supply you with previous examples of the ed specs, but I would definitely take under advisement your recommendation to track the changes for future reference.
I would be grateful. So I have lots and lots of questions. Firstly, on page 5 of the Quarterfield Manual, Section 2, oh yes, I have 2 questions about this. Under the accessibility, under general criteria in that first section, accessibility, it references 2010 standards for accessible design. I assume those are the most recent?
They are, yes.
All right, lovely. And then under same page, under life safety / building codes, do you take into account LEED in any of your work?
Yeah, so the life safety codes and building codes are less about LEED per se, but we do, I think further along in the last section on the next page 6, we talk about sustainability. And our building, any new building in the state of Maryland, prior to a change that's about to be modified now within the state laws, was required to meet LEED Silver standards. So For example, Savannah Park High School, Crofton High School, Lothian, Rolling Knolls all met the LEED Silver requirement. The new language of the new law is being developed now. I've seen it briefly, and obviously we'll be studying it more, but it's going to allow more flexibility to use other rating systems, not just LEED, for evaluating our schools. But whether it's a LEED building or not, we strive to make it as LEED-like as we can, and the energy codes themselves almost force that issue to some extent. So.
Wonderful. What other, if it isn't LEED, what are the other sort of?
There's programs.
Yes,
there's one
thank
called Green Globes is one. Off the top of my head, I don't know the others, but there are a number of options. And again, we haven't completely studied this new law and what it's going to allow. So.
So my next question is under sustainability, which again has always been a passion. I wonder if there's been any movement towards adding additional solar, geosolar, or geothermal systems on new school properties, because these things pay for themselves, and there's certainly groups out there that would jump at the opportunity to install such items, sometimes at zero cost to us, and and then we reap the benefits. So I'm wondering if there's a move towards that.
So we have done geothermal on some recent projects. Lothian, Rolling Knolls, and Savannah Park is partial geothermal. The solar issue, the challenges with solar are our sites are sometimes limited. So, for example, we have I don't know if you're familiar with the solar field we have out at Fort Smallwood facilities. Yeah. So the challenge on a school site would be how we really can't give up that much site on a school site typically to provide for solar panels. We have not investigated yet or gone toward in the direction of building mounted solar panels at this point, but I'm sure that in the future that could be something we are looking at.
I would definitely love to see if it's at all possible. I know that some of our roofs are flat, and I'm not an architect, nowhere near. I just love watching any show about green building, period. But if there's a way to do it, I would definitely encourage and fully support anything that could happen with regard to solar and geosolar specifically. We have so many Sundays a year to see those things roll backwards, to see us being able to free up, millions of dollars that we would otherwise pay out in energy costs, I think would be beautiful. And I know that sometimes we have snow, and I know that might be a limiting factor, but if other school districts can do this elsewhere in snowier conditions, I would just love to see it. So just my little 2 cents. I'll get off my soapbox now and go back to my questions.
We are studying that. We have made some site visits to local jurisdictions that have solar power on the roofs. So we've been looking at different options. So
wonderful. And perhaps our energy company, Constellation, might have some ideas with that too. So yay, go sustainability. I have more questions though. On page 7, at the top, it talks about windows and operable windows. Yes. Under what set of circumstances would windows not be able to be operable? Is it risk of falling from height, or is it what are the limiting factors?
No, we actually put limiters on our operable windows because we really don't.
Yeah.
Especially on the second floor, we really don't want the kids getting too clever and climbing out. High windows, awning windows up high, or if there's a large bank of windows, such as in a media center, they all wouldn't reasonably be operable.
Excellent. And under page 9, plumbing, it talks a little bit about lead. I know that's been a hot button issue. I won't get into that, but it says drinking water with a lead level below 5 parts per billion. Shouldn't our goal be 0? Is that not a realistic goal, though? I don't know. I'm just curious.
We are looking into language for requiring our faucets and things to be at 0 level. The industry isn't quite there yet. but we are working towards that goal.
Brilliant. Also, this is out of curiosity, under climate control, same page, and it says humidity in accordance with current codes. You don't happen to possibly know what the current code is on that, would you? And I don't expect you, I know my questions are bizarre, so.
No, it's a reasonable question, and you're correct that I do not know that off the top of my head. I can certainly get that information.
Oh, okay. Page 10 under electrical. Are all new lighting projects and renovations done with LED lighting, and are they all Energy Star certified?
Yes, they're all done with LED.
Perfect.
I am quite sure about the Energy Star component as well.
Okay. I think I'm getting to my last question, so I appreciate all my colleagues for bearing through this lengthy back and forth. Yeah, they all have to do with projections and enrollment on all three schools, actually. So the first one is under Quarterfield. The actual 2018 numbers for kindergarten is 83, and this is on page 3 of that second part, just so we're all following along. So the current kindergarten enrollment is 83, but next year's first grade enrollment is 70. That's a delta of 13. How did that? Why is it dropping?
So, Kyle Roof, Supervisor Planning, Design, and Construction. So projections are based on the educational master plan that was published last year. The actual enrollments are taken from this September 30th of this past school year. That's how we pick the day that we select for actual enrollments. All right, the projections are continually updated, and right now we're updating the current master plan that will be provided to you in, I think, the second meeting in June.
Okay, so what you're saying
those numbers will be updated.
So in all likelihood, barring moves, that number for next year's, for 2019-2020's first grade would be closer to 83 than it would be to 70. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my same question with Hillsmere and Rippling Woods. Yes, and both the same. For actual enrollment on, I think this one's Hillsmere, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. In page 3, the actual kindergarten this year is 72, but then the first grade is 47, and then for Rippling Woods, the actual kindergarten this year is 81, but then there's a huge jump to first grade for next year. So all those numbers, these are just rough guesstimates, but they'll be closer to the actuals. The kindergarten this year will be closer to the first grade next year on all three.
When we present the master plan in June, those numbers will all be updated.
Awesome.
The purpose of the charts here are for what we've actually submitted to the state and what's been approved.
Got it. Yep. Thank you for listening to all my questions and for your answers, and I really like this stuff. Thank you for providing, I don't know, just really love it. Thank you.
Mr. Leib and then Mrs. Corkadel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just curious, has there been, since the ed specs were back in 2004, wow, that's back when I was on your side, have we made any adjustment or downsizing of the standard ed specs for library, media center, given the advancements in digital learning, digital technology, internet, et cetera? Just curious.
Yes, we have, actually. We've done some minor adjustments just this go-round because we used to call for a linear footage of, I think it was 1,100 linear feet of shelving in an elementary school, including all the deep shelving. And that number has been reduced over the last few years. Obviously, there are fewer books in the media center. They're using the media centers very differently. So we still have to allow for, I think we allow for 850 linear feet of shelving. And we still have to allow for 2 teaching spaces in the media center for most of our schools because most of the schools, the larger schools have more than one full-time media specialist. So yes, the answer is yes, we have reduced the media center.
Thank you. Additionally, in all the schools, Quarterfield, Rippling Woods, and Hillsmere, you describe a learning studio. I was wondering, what is that and how is it used?
The Learning Studio is the home of the Triple E program space. So we did struggle a bit a couple of years ago to determine what we should call that space. And by consensus, it was determined to be called the Learning Studio. So.
Thank you, thank you. Lastly, I noticed for, I believe, Quarterfield and Rippling Woods. I'm very pleased to see the quote-unquote extended gym to allow for community use. I remember when that was began. But I noticed at Hillsmere, that's not part of the spec. How'd that determination become made?
Because it's in critical areas, we're very mindful of how big we can make this building. And we are also working with the City of Annapolis, who provides the program there, to utilize the gym as they do now, and providing them some storage space, but instead of a whole room itself.
Thank you. That's it.
Mrs. Corkadel.
Thank you, sir. Great job, guys. I'm excited to see some progress made. So, just most of our trends have been going up, and I know in some areas they're not. And so we're just to make sure I'm reading this correctly. We're going to be our SRC is going to be reduced in Hillsmere, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We're giving them the extra, the flex, that extra vestibule space, so that's pretty cool. So that means that, okay. The other question is, so I just want to make sure I have my numbers correct before I get my next question. And we're looking, so we're going to reduce the SRC by 48, and then we have an increase for 122 for Quarterfield and 132 regular students, with another 30 for the regional programs, correct? Okay. And our cost per square foot on these, I guess the efficiency in the large to the smaller is where I'm seeing the differential, correct?
That is correct.
In the bid structures, okay, great. That was it. I just wanted to make sure that our numbers are, they look like they were in order, and just double checking. Okay, thanks.
Ms. Hummer?
So just looking at the steps for the project. So these are the ed specs, and next step will be
the feasibility study.
Feasibility study, and then at that point, and that's when the determination is made for renovation, modernization, or replacement.
Correct.
And that will come before us at that time.
Yes.
And how long does the feasibility study usually take? When should we expect to see that again?
Yeah. Double check. I believe it's in September.
End of September.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Look forward to it then.
Ms. Schallheim?
Sorry, me again. I came up with two more questions. On page 51 of the Quarterfield educational specification, it's the instrumental music page. And I really did take a lot of time and read every word of all three. And this page is the only one that makes reference to a specific vendor, the Ultra Store. And then I Googled it and looked at their stuff, and I was interested. And so I wonder why we're referring to a specific vendor, or are we saying something like that?
It's a bit of a Band-Aid situation, yes. Okay. It's Wenger Ultra Store, but they are made by, comparable products can be provided by other vendors such as Duron, and so it would be competitively bid during the bidding process.
Oh, good. So you're not.
This just helps to define the basis of design that we want to see in those rooms, and architects quickly can go to the same Wenger site and know exactly what it is we want.
Cool. So we're not showing preference. We're just saying something that looks like X.
Correct.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last question is, which one is this? Rippling Woods, page 2, the map. So it shows Rippling Woods Elementary School kind of northwest, but then directly south. What are all these other buildings?
That's Old Mill High School, Middle School. So
okay.
it's one, our piece of land is one big site with several schools on it. So we opted to just show the entire site for context
So
for
the other
Rippling
one
Woods.
is Old Mill High and Middle.
And correct, and at the bottom, in the bottom left-hand corner is Ruth Parker Eason.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's a huge stretch of land. Okay, great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Mhm.
Ms. Antwine?
Thank you. So back to the ADA standards. As we know, in federal land, every 10 years those standards will change, whether it's minimal or huge. So we're looking at if the last standards were from 2010, there's a likely chance in 2020 we'll have new standards. I want to understand the flexibility on those standards once this is in consideration of these specifications. How much flexibility do we have to change?
The 2010 what we call the 2010 standards actually didn't go into effect until several years ago. So they, even though they're called 2010, they became effective at a later date. So we will always be at the point of design. We will be following the latest and most current ADA standards. Should they change before then?
Thank you, Ms. Antwine. Any further board comments at this point specific to the motion on Corderfield Elementary School? Okay. Any public comment on Corderfield Elementary? Seeing none, Mrs. Connolly, would you please call the roll on item 5.05?
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer? Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Lyde?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis? Mr.
Aye.
Gilliland?
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Now move to item 5.06, which is the ed specs for Hillsmere Elementary School. I know we've had a lot of general questions already, but we can ask some specific questions here. And first, Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please? I'm sorry.
We're at Hillsmere, correct?
Yep.
So I recommend board approval of the Hillsmere Elementary School educational specifications.
Second.
Great, thank you. Board questions at this point. Mrs. Hummer.
I just want to say, for all of these, I've visited all of these schools. They all desperately need, they've been waiting patiently through the MGT study, but they are all in great need, and it's very exciting to see us moving forward with this. And I know I see some Hillsmere parents back there that are agreeing with me and having them there. And I have multiple previous teachers of my children who teach at Corderfield and at Rippling Woods, and they are very excited. So I just want to say I'm thrilled to see us moving forward on these projects.
Thank you. Ms. Urrea.
I just had a general question. So I know at many of these schools, like I visited Hillsmere as well, and just when Savannah High School got renovated, there was a lot of like historical artwork in the schools. And I know, if I'm correct, Hillsmere has like a huge mural on one of the walls. And I know it's not in an educational specification, but is there ever like a transfer to restore that historical art that students do to bring it over to the new schools, or is that not common practice?
Yes, actually, we do that on
Really?
a lot of our schools.
Really?
Thinking back to Annapolis Elementary, they brought their stained glass over, and I believe Arnold may be doing that if they're doing that with their tile wall. So once the design process starts, the architects, there will be a committee formed, and the architects they'll be brought on board. They'll get an understanding of the building, and they will understand what's important to that school and by extension to that community. So those
Really?
things will be acknowledged. I think if you went to Rolling Knolls, you would see the old, the artwork that was on the outside of the building, the sculpture garden, that was transferred to the new building. So it's
Really?
very common
Okay.
for that
That's
to
awesome.
happen.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes me very happy because I know that it not only like brightens up the hallway, but I know students love it. Okay,
To the
thank
extent
you.
that's possible, they will
Really?
they will make it
Perfect,
happen.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Any further questions on Hillsmere? Any public comment? Just checking. Thank you for your advocacy, Ms. Oakes, and certainly everyone. Okay, we're now going to vote on the ed specs. Item 5.06, Mrs. Conley, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer? Aye. Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Live?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
And Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
I'll tell you a second. Thank you very much. We now move to item 5.07, which is the Rippling Woods Elementary School ed specs. Same thing, we'll do specific questions and a vote. But first, Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of the Rippling Woods Elementary School educational specifications.
Second.
Great motion and a second. Any specific questions on this? Seeing none, any public comment on Rippling Woods? Seeing none, Mrs. Conley, would you please call the roll on item 5.07?
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer? Ms. Urrea?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Mr. Live?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
8-0, motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for this. We'll now move to review items. Item 6.01 is the county executive's recommended FY 2020 operating and capital budgets. This is a review item, but there is a staff presentation on this. And we've got Mr. Shaknovich, Mr. Stansky, Seaman Crawford, welcome back. Just switching chairs on us. Great, Mr. Shaknovich, thank you.
Sure. So, good evening. For the record, Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer. Let us introduce ourselves for the record.
Good evening, Matt Stansky, Director of Financial Operations.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
And we are here to bring as a review item an overview of the Board of Education's operating and capital budgets as they were presented this morning by County Executive Stuart Pittman. It's required under the county charter that no later than May 1 of each year, the county executive bring forward his recommendation on the budget. That did occur at 11 o'clock, and the council convened at 1 o'clock today to begin their budget deliberations. So this is step one of a 45-day long process. We'll begin by reviewing the operating budget first. It is the one that is not colored red, white, and blue. So as always, we'll review the revenue first. Essentially, you'll see things that are highlighted in yellow as a change of condition. So essentially, that denotes a alteration from what the Board of Education requested for FY20 versus what has been proposed by the county executive. So we'll work through the revenue elements first, and then we'll go to the expenditure side. On the revenue side, the county executives concurred with our federal revenue projections. On the state side, you'll see that originally the Board of Education had asked for acknowledgement of $17.7 million worth of state funding. That is the figure that we were provided by MSDE. That is the pre-Kerwin number. Since the Kerwin House and Senate related bills have passed, the county has elected to essentially recognize the potential of that revenue. In terms of the unrestricted side, it's about $13 million. So they added about $13 million to the original 17.7 number to get you to 30.8 number. And I'll have some comments about that shortly. On the county side, the Board of Education asked for about $65.2 million. The county executive is recommending $46.2 million worth of funding. The county executives concurred with our local and fund balance figures. In terms of the restricted number, you'll see that there is a change of about $498,000, and that is again due to an increase in restricted funding also associated with the Kerwin bill. So the county executive's recommendation recognizes the potential of us receiving the Kerwin funding. They concurred with our Healthcare Internal Service Fund and a Food Services Special Revenue Fund. So all in all, the Board of Education asked for about a $92.7 million year-over-year increase from all sources, restricted and unrestricted, and about $87.2 million of that is being recommended for funding. That's about 94% of the total revenue ask is being recommended for funding. I will make a few comments, though, about the Kerwin funding. As you know, the blueprint for Maryland Excellence was adopted by the General Assembly here in the waning days of the General Assembly session. However, a large component of those dollars is, while it is designated for the purpose and distribution as outlined in the bill, that is at the discretion of the governor. To date, to the best of our knowledge, the governor has not either acknowledged whether the funding will be released, to what extent it will be released, or what schedule that will be released on. So both us and the county are eagerly awaiting a possible answer to that question. We are in constant communication with each other as well as our partners at state government, and when we know, they'll know. When they'll know, we'll know, and we will certainly let you know. But again, about $13.5 million of this $87.2 million is directly tied to the decision of the governor of the state of Maryland. Going down to the expense side then, the compensation pieces, the county executive is recommending fully funding all of the compensation elements. The second half of the 2019 mid-year compensation increase, the raise of the $25 to $30 an hour stipend pay, the FY20 compensation placeholder, and then the FY 2010 and 2011 catch-up steps. So you'll notice, again, there's an exact match between what was requested in the Board of Education's officially adopted budget request and what the county executive is recommending to the county council. The next three items, again, are an exact match, that being the contract and charter school, PPE increase, the fibering expansion, and Mr. Gilliland, you had asked about the food tray, so you'll see the $483,200 worth of revenues, food services, organic based meal trays. So the county executive is in fact recommending the incremental revenue to neutralize the cost elements of that. Going down the list then, the county executive's recommendation aligns with the board's request in terms of assistant principals, bilingual facilitators, board member compensation. There is a differential in the next two items. The county executive is not recommending funding of the internal audit temporary support or the school operations consultant elements. The county executive is recommending full funding for the community ambassador. As you recall, the computer science teacher specialist was an amendment. The board cut the computer science teacher specialist out of the budget. And because the board cut it out, that cannot be funded because the county can't fund above the board's request. So that is a zero. The county executive is recommending full funding of the startup funding for the Crofton Area High School, 8.5 positions. In the English language acquisition category, the Board of Education had asked for 28 teachers and 13 bilingual assistants. That totals to 41 FTEs. The county executive's recommendation is a 35 FTEs distributed as follows. 25 of them will be ELA teachers and 10 will be bilingual assistants. So 25 and 10 to get us to the 35. I'll work this one a little by groupings. The county executive is recommending full funding for the establishment of the EEE programs within the Broadneck and Glen Burnie cluster. So that is an exact match for those two. However, the county executive is not recommending funding for Arundel, Old Mill, Savannah Park, and South River at this juncture. The county executive's budget contains a recommendation for The Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement Specialist, the one position, but not for the $40,000 of supplemental materials of instruction and PD that was introduced by the Board of Education amendment. The county executive's budget does not include funding for the robotics club. The human resource, the net zeros, the two associated with human resources, the background investigative assistant and the benefit assistant, are both recommended for funding. After 18 long years, the county executives concurred with increasing the substitute daily rate of pay by $10 an hour for both our long and short-term subs. That is fully funded, as are the two internship teachers. The county executive went along with the board's proposed cut to contracted services in the maintenance department. The county executive budget does not include the additional $6,000 for the MSBE office advertising. However, they indicated that through the Office of Economic Development, they are ramping up in a rather large way their outreach to the MSBE and veteran business community, and they want to partner with the school district in those efforts. So while the funding is not there, I believe through leveraging the resources of the county government, we can certainly arrive at the desired intent of the Board of Education. The county executive's budget does include full support for the operations staffing, as well as the net zero positions for outdoor ed, Studio 39, professional growth and development, and the 0.6 funding for the specialists for professional growth and development is fully supported. There are some differences in the next few items, and I'll be careful to address those. The Board of Education's budget requested a total of 8 psychologists and 6 social workers. The county executive's budget has a recommendation of 12 FTEs, 6 psychologists, and 6 social workers, so 6 and 6 instead of 8 and 6. The Board of Education's budget request was for 3 PPWs. 1.0 are included in the county executive's recommendation. In the area of school counseling, the Board of Education had asked for 18 total school counselors, 14 of which are included in the county executive's recommendation. The next couple are fully funded at the county executive's recommendation, that being the interpretation translation technician, the social studies resource technician. In the areas of special ed, the bilingual student assessment team is recommended for full funding. Birth to 21 special ed program staffing, there is a difference. The Board of Education's budget had requested 38.9 positions. 29.9 positions are included in the county executive's request. The remaining special education elements are recommended for full funding, that being the non-public placements, the specialty site staffing, as well as tangentially the 504 facilitators within our student services category. Remember, class size reduction is sort of looking in the rearview mirror, right? So that's looking to make inroads to our pre-existing schools and class student-teacher ratios that are in excess of our recommended guidelines. The Board of Education had requested 124 positions to make inroads into that. 109.5 of them are funded in this county executive's recommendation. In terms of teachers for enrollment growth, general educators are fully funded, elementary readings fully funded, instrumental music's fully funded. In the area of general music, the Board of Education had asked for 4 positions. 1 of those is funded. And finally, the 21st Century Digital Learning Initiative, 7 positions, and the associated infrastructure and other associated costs are recommended to be fully funded. So on the unrestricted side, the Board of Education had asked for 377.6 FTEs and a total of $84.6 million. The county executive has recommended a funding amount of 314.1 FTEs and $78.6 million. Absent the additional $497 million in additional state funding through the Kerwin plan and restricted, all of the restricted dollars match at the bottom line. The board asked for approximately $92.7 million, a 7.83% year-over-year increase. The county executive's recommendation contains a increased budget amount sufficient in terms of appropriation authority to amount to $87.2 million, or a 7.37% year-over-year increase. And with that, we will pause to take any questions that you and your colleagues may have, Mr. President.
Okay, and then we'll do capital.
Yes, sir. We
overview
prefer
later.
we'll do that independently afterwards.
Excellent. So we'll just do questions now on the operating budget. Mrs. Hummer.
So this total, I just want to clarify with the Kerwin money. So this total amount of the $87 million includes anticipating $13 million from Kerwin.
13.5.
13.5. If the Kerwin money is not released, it is not released by the governor, we will have to adjust this budget back an additional $13 million.
To begin with, the county government will have to make an initial decision on that, but we will not have the appropriation authority for it. We cannot, we have to have a balanced budget. We have to have appropriation authority for all of our revenues and to be able to expend those. So if the county doesn't do it, we're going to have to do it, but we certainly cannot overspend. So while the legislation contemplates the money arriving, unless the funds can be certified as being appropriated and available, we cannot access them.
So that will mean that on the county and on our side, we're going to have to make some adjustments and reduce things in categories if that $13 million is not released.
Right. Again, we'll address that when we get to that bridge. We're all hopeful, the county and us alike, that we hear some affirmative information before the council was placed in a position of having to adopt the budget, let alone this board.
So would the county, if this money, if this is not released, let's say by July 1, would we have to adjust the budget at that time, what we passed?
Again, likely yes. So all of us are asking some questions of the state as well. We actually have a statewide CFO meeting this Monday, the 6th of May, with the state financial officials, and we hope to gain some additional insights from them when the 24 of us meet with them that morning.
And so I'm sorry to keep belaboring this, but just to say, so let's say the governor doesn't release the money as of July 1st, but decides to release it October 1st. Would we be able to go back at that time and adjust accordingly?
Yeah, so at that time, we would go and process what's called a supplemental budget request. It would require legislation on the part of the county executive's introduction and the county council's passage of it. But we would, once it becomes released and certified at the state level, we absolutely would expeditiously pursue a supplemental budget adjustment from the county government.
So
council.
I'm putting out there some what if. So if we had to adjust this back, so for instance, we'd say we cannot hire this many people because the 13 million is not there. But if the money is released later on, we could, with the supplemental budget request, open up those positions then to hire at that time. Is that correct?
Correct. So the Kerwin dollars are essentially bucketized in different categories, very prescriptively.
Yes.
Within the state bill, those dollars have been very prescriptively built into this budget. On the input side, should they not materialize, we know exactly what needs to be taken out.
Okay.
Again, because of this very prescriptive nature. So we'll know to a high degree of specificity what we cannot do. And then, yes, if at some point in time it gets released, we will get the authority to fill in the blank, whatever those $13.5 million worth of elements are.
Okay. And I know I was, sounding a little Debbie Downer, asking all those. This is an excellent proposal by the county executive. I can say in my many years here, this is the most generous that we've received from the county, and so I'm very pleased to see so many of our priorities that are fully funded. So county executive, if you're listening, I'm not criticizing in any way. I think it's great. I just want to be very clear with the public about when it comes with the Kerwin legislation and the funding that comes, that there are things that will be contingent on that. But I am I want to give big thanks to the county executive and his staff and his team for all their hard work, and our team for working, for our team who's been advocating so strongly for our budget. And I look forward to working with the county council moving forward to get this through in a very positive way for our school system. Thank you.
So you went from Debbie Downer to joyful Julie.
Well, exactly. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but we got to be honest to people. People need to know that we're all for the Kerwin, but perhaps people should be contacting the governor and encouraging him to release the Kerwin money as soon as possible so that we can move forward on this.
We'll go with Ms. Antwine and then Ms. Schallheim.
So thank you for this review. I know that this review was done, maybe an hour between. So thank you so much for that. I also wanted to ask about Curran, but I won't because it got covered. So with that, I will thank you all, most certainly, and thank the county executive and his team as well. This was definitely generous, and I want to tell the council members, stand by because we'll be working with you in the future as well, and we certainly thank all of you for your support.
Thank you. Ms. Schallheim.
First, thank you for pulling this together so quickly in record speed. I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate it. And I wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues in thanking County Executive Pittman and imploring our County Council to keep this as it is. And I will be surely in contact with all of you. And yes, this is very generous, and I know that this is far greater than what we've seen in recent years, and I'm grateful. So thank you for County Executive for your leadership.
Ms. Urrea.
I also want to say thank you to the county executive if you're watching, but I want to be the Debbie Downer a little bit. I'm very disappointed in the fact that the psychologists, the people personnel workers, along with the school psychologists, were not fully funded. I know that they were majority funded, but I just feel like this past year's push it was very much on the mental health side, along with the teacher class size reduction, enrollment growth. I know that was a huge push, and I'm very excited to see that funded very much as well. But in order for this to be, the teachers to be needed, we need the students. So I hope if the county executive is watching this, next year maybe he'll fully fund that stuff. Thank you.
If I could add, Ms. Urrea, unfortunately you weren't able to join us because you had a thing called school this morning, so you were in class. But I will say that in the county executive's remarks, he did make a remark that he felt it unfortunate that he wasn't able to fully fund those mental health needs, but he did physically turn to the county council and said, I would welcome you to raise that number. I would welcome you to add more. And so your colleagues were able to hear that. You and I just want to share that with you, that he recognizes it. There is a numbers game that he has to play, right? He's only got so much money, and he did, and we realized he had to make some cuts at some places, but he does realize that's important, and he did turn to the county council. He said he would welcome them increasing those numbers.
Okay, thank you. I did have to go to school, even though I'm a senior. But
along those lines, Ms. Urrea, recognizing that it is a county-wide issue, not just a school system-related issue, the county executive made remarks. He is actually increasing supports on the county government side in the mental health arena, so we can do more of a holistic look, not just within the few hours of the days that we have the youngsters under our roof. So there are other mental health positions and funding support on the county government side of the ledger.
Awesome. Thank you for telling me that.
Yes,
that makes me a little feel better. So thank you.
So again, from Debbie Downer to joyful Josie. So we're I don't see any further lights on the operating budget at this. Mrs. Hummer.
Or real quick, I said this briefly before, but just for the public, I don't think the public fully appreciates how many hours and how much time our staff spends meeting with the county executive and his staff, advocating for this budget line by line, explaining to them what this will do for our students. And it's because of their hard work, a lot of this is that they were able to share the story and put it out there that this is funded as well as it is, because they were able to go through and justify every line in here. And so I just want to say again that the staff and Dr. Arlotto did an amazing job defending this, supporting this, encouraging this, and getting it for the state that we have. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you. So I see no further questions on the operating budget. And then what I'll do, if we do offer, as we offer public comment, we'll just do the presentation on the capital, answer board questions on that, and then I'll offer the opportunity for any public comment at that point. So we'll shift to the capital.
So what you have before the exhibit here, we effectively call the red, white, and blue exhibit, customarily. So you'll see in the white text box in the far left-hand side, the Board of Education's total capital budget recommendation was $172.2 million. The county executive is recommended funding of $165.1 million. Again, well into the mid 90% range in terms of overall funding. All of the items that are banded in a white colored font are fully funded. So for example, in health and safety, we asked for $1.5 million. $1.5 million is the recommendation. So that's how you decipher that. Items that are banded in blue means they are funded. However, the funding level does not match to the exact dollar amount. So for example, in building system renovations, almost $22.4 million was the request. $21.5 million is the funding level, and we can go through some of these. So in that one of the roofing projects that we had was deferred for availability of funding at the state level. So this is really not a cut per se from the part of the county. So one of our projects, because of spending affordability, was deferred by the state. So the county did not recognize the state revenue because we won't have it, and the equivalent county matching funding for that project. So essentially it's just been pushed out one year. Maintenance backlog reduction, we asked for $7 million. $5 million is the funding recommendation. Again, that's a spending affordability issue, as is roof replacements. Relocatable classrooms, we do not anticipate. So we have some funding remaining from the current year, and we don't anticipate as high a request level in the year ahead. We've actually been reducing the amount of portable or relocatable classrooms we have here across the county, thankfully, so that does not cause us any pause. Asbestos is fully funded. Berry-free access has been reduced by $200,000. We actually have prior year. So capital funding, although it's line item appropriated, unlike an operating budget, doesn't expire. So dollars you have from prior years can roll forward. So we have some prior year funding that will cover the gap. It's not going to cause the cancellation of any projects. School bus replacements. So our school bus replacement, remember, we have to replace the buses every 12th year. Our bicycle is a little bit lumpy per se, but we know we have to replace them in the 12th year. We would not have buses expiring in that fiscal year. If we bought them, we would be having buses that we would have to retire prematurely with 1 year left, one less year of life on them. So we will not be receiving the $800,000 this year, but next year we're essentially going to have double that, and the county understands that. So it's simply a cash flow issue that doesn't cause us any concern. All of the next projects are fully funded, from additions down to all of our major construction projects: Cromwell, Edgewater, Tyler, Rich Henry Lee, Crofton area. The feasibility study funding for Quarterfield, Hillsmere, and Rippling is fully funded, as is full funding for the design of the new Old Mill West High School. The health room modifications, there's a modest decrease. Again, that does not cause us any concern because we have some prior year funding that we can continue on with those projects. The next series of line items were fully funded, as you can see, from priority number 22 down to 27, and there is a very modest $100,000 cut to the athletic stadium improvement category. Again, that would not preclude us from discharging the projects that we had intended to do in the current year. So overall, as I said earlier, in terms of direct support of the Board of Education, we had asked for 171 and just over $0.9 million, $164.8 million is the funding recommendation. And then through our collaborative efforts with the Department of Public Works, an additional $250,000 at the Board of Education's request has been put into DPW's budget for them to continue to assist us by constructing sidewalks away from our premises, so not on our property, to continue to aid and assist our students to safely and appropriately walk to school. But again, in terms of a percentage of funding, this is, like the capital budget, a historic level of funding, clearly on a percentile basis.
Okay, thank you for that. Mrs. Ellis.
Yes, thank you very much. Question about, so relocatable classrooms. You say you're not concerned we're reducing the use of those. Can you help me understand why we asked for 1.5 million, but you feel comfortable with the 1 million?
Well, we asked for 1.5 when we developed the budget back in September. We're sitting here now in May, so we know more now than we did back then. We know how much money we have left over from prior years that we can roll forward. We send out a memo each and every year to the schools asking how many relocatables do they have? Do they need them still? Do they need more? Do they need less, et cetera? So we've got real data now. So we typically ask for $1.5 million. If you take a look at our 6-year plan, you'll see that as a flat line number. That's sort of like our ongoing year-over-year ask. And then we don't want to obligate or take money from the county for things that we essentially couldn't make beneficial use of. And sometimes that helps us. So if we ask for an additional $500,000 here, that may be $500,000 less that we'll get in one of our other projects. But again, we partner with the county. If we don't need the $500,000, they can put it into a bridge, a fire station, a police station, whatever the county needs. So we work very collaboratively with the county government and ask only what we need. And on our projects that we complete, when we have monies left over on any of the line item projects, we actually have to, and we do, gladly turn that money back over to the county so that they can repurpose it into either other of our projects or other projects that the county might have going.
So because the budget process is such a drawn-out process, what we ask is kind of fluid, and so you continue to communicate with the county and help them see where we can make adjustments as they're...
As actually I think Ms. Hummer alluded to, there is almost continuous dialogue from the county, and if it's not verbally, it's by email exchange. Any documentation or funding recommendations we receive from the state, I mean, everything is fully and expeditiously shared on a real-time basis with the county.
So I have not heard any alarms in anything you've said, so is there anything on this capital budget proposal by the county executive that brings you concern?
No, if this was adopted as is, you'd have one very happy COO, okay. And that doesn't happen very often. Like maybe never.
I know. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
I'm holding back. Mrs. Schallheim.
Okay.
I love him.
So, do you anticipate being happy then? Like, do you think that the county council will likely to adjust this with your vast historical knowledge of how this works? Yeah.
So as you may have heard, the county executive is putting forward some revenue enhancement suggestions, both on the property tax side and the income tax side. We have fairly regimented capital debt affordability levels, and those are mathematically tied to a number of indices, clearly revenues that support the debt service, or in colloquial terms, the mortgage payment on the general obligation bonds. So this funding level is, I suspect, to some extent predicated on the revenue elements coming to fruition. If that doesn't come to fruition, then both on the operating and capital budget side, I would suspect there would likely be a need for some adjustments.
Okay, so I understand what that, okay, thank you. A question about Old Mill. So there was some things that came out in the transition report, and then the plan that I thought we were more likely to support. And so when it says Old Mill West High School, I assume that the county executive is still in support of a two-school solution for that project?
Yeah, so the county executive made remarks to that effect today, that he acknowledges the hard work of the transition team, but he has independently analyzed the viability study that was done back in 2015, 2016. Remember, that study was actually funded by the county, not this Board of Education. So he and his team reviewed that study, and he personally toured Old Mill Senior High School, it's Old Mill Middle School South, to put his own eyes on the situation. And today he acknowledged that he believes that the processes and the work plan that's outlined in the viability study is the one that he supports. So he does support 2 separate high schools, 2 separate middle schools, the Cat North relocation, and then the 2 elementary schools that are part of the plan.
Perfect. Yeah, I was listening from home, and I regret that I wasn't able to be there. I was nursing a bad back this morning, and I did hear that, but I wanted to get confirmation from you. That sounded like that's what I heard, but thank you for confirming it, and thank you again to the county executive who may or may not be watching out there. Thank you so much for this, for your proposed budget and for funding us to this level. Thanks.
Mrs. Hummer and then Mrs. Corkadel.
I just want to piggyback on that about Old Mill West. I was encouraged by the county executive stressing that he agreed with our plan. I'm grateful that he went out and saw Old Mill with his own eyes. I think anybody that goes in that building and sees it with their own eyes says, yes, this needs to be replaced as quickly as we can be. I was also very encouraged and appreciative that he said very clearly that he supports the MGT study that we've done to prioritize our buildings so that, certain things can't be moved around, for political reasons or whatever, that we are truly trying to look at the greatest needs of the school system based on a prioritization thing, and that's a system that was put in place more than a decade ago with agreement from county executive, county council, and school board. The agreement with everyone that that's something we all needed to abide by together, and I was encouraged to hear him reiterate that going into his administration, that he stands by the MGT study as well, and that we'll continue with that partnership with them.
Mrs. Corkadel.
Major kudos. I know you guys do spend a boatload of time, because remember, they're not just presenting to the county executive. They've got a planning advisory board, and then they're going to have to roll right back around again to the council. So you guys are definitely doing double duty. Much appreciated. I just wanted a little bit more clarification on the security related upgrades. That concerns me, because we were trying to be as aggressive as possible to get our schools as stable as possible. And a lot of these, some of this, the 1.45 that was omitted in there is for those vestibules and to make our kids safer. So was it shared with you what the rationale was on the reduction of that particular item?
No, so as you remember, back in April of 2018, County Executive Shue made an announcement at our Annapolis High School that he was going to put $5 million into security in the current fiscal year and $5 million in the upcoming year. So this carries that through. Additionally, the governor created a grant at the state level for state funding, and that grant essentially is just under $1 million.
So it's the grand dollar differential at the state, not the county. Okay. I just wondered which side of the heap it got reduced under.
But again, we have a work plan, the facilities division and Mr. Batten's security division. We've got a priority list for the vestibules, for the doors, for the cameras. They've been diligently working towards executing that plan. So this amount of funding will keep them plenty busy for the next fiscal year.
Okay, so we can revisit that next year.
Yes, ma'am.
And then just similarly with the roof replacements, my personal experience in going into some of our schools, especially the ones that have challenges and stuff, that's a huge difference in there. Could you, probably not a today thing, but I would be curious to see if $3 million is what we can do in a year, that we're confident we can, and we're working with 2, how much roughly was omitted? How many schools or how many projects are we omitting when we zap that money? Just curious.
We can get you that again.
Yeah,
The comprehensive maintenance plan that this board adopts each September will have an inventory of the schools and the roofing projects. It's on a school basis or a project categorical basis, so that information is readily available, and we'll get that to you.
Because I just remember it was always run into my head, sitting on the PAB, that, roof replacement equates to a stretch of years of what we can get out of our schools more so. So when I see a reduction on that one.
Well, it's a reduction. It's a reduction. So our request had been $2 million, had been a steady state request, and they had been fully funding it. And if you take a look at the program budget that was adopted by the county council in June of 2018, it had $2 million each and every year in the out years. But due to price escalation within the roofing business, so the roofing category of work is one of our most rapid price escalation areas, and prices have grown disproportionately in that section of the construction realm versus other like carpentry and flooring, ceiling, etc. So we made a recommendation with the superintendent's support and this board's support to increase our annual ask from $2 million to $3 million.
Correct.
To account for that escalation. So the county decided to go with their program budget, which was the $2 million. I suspect, again, ma'am, spending affordability levels, they're pushing their ceilings, and yet trying to, actually, we just heard from the county executive today that we were able to maintain our AAA bond rating as well. So we certainly don't want to jeopardize that, because our borrowing costs would go up tremendously if our bonding levels, our bond rated levels were to descend.
So basically, we're going to be doing without as many projects schools will be able to get to, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because of the escalation, but no, I understand how that goes with the carryovers year to year, which is why I requested the playground equipment addition, as a matter of fact. Thank you guys so very much. Greatly appreciate it. That was my only question, sir.
Thank you, and Mrs. Corkadel, I appreciate you raising the question about security, and I appreciate your response to it, and knowing full well that the plan is still in motion. Certainly.
It's a very aggressive plan, and they're doing a wonderful job discharging it for you.
And I know it is, but yesterday with UNC, one of the campuses there are having, yet another tragedy.
Yes,
granted, I know it's higher ed, but it's still, the education space and its students, and that's certainly near and dear to me. So I appreciate both sides of that. Mr. Lai.
I'd just like to offer a little longer-term historical perspective to both the operating and capital budgets that were unveiled and presented to us, the Board of Education, today. Having been associated with the school system for 25 years plus, having built budgets, defended budgets, begged for budgets, both sides, on the staff side, the board side, and the county government side. This really is a historic day. We haven't seen support for public education in Anne Arundel County in this magnitude in my 25 years. I'm very appreciative of it. I have grandchildren who are about to come back to this county at the end of the summer. They'll be in our public schools. And as I've talked with Dr. Arlotto and some of you in the past, if these resources really come to fruition, then the onus is on us. We have to ensure we continue to deliver the best product, to ensure our kids, when they graduate from our schools, are ready to compete and be successful in the jobs of the future. And with this type of funding, our job just got harder. But I believe all of us welcome that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leib, and I think that's very well said. And I would just say, certainly I agree with you 100% on our responsibility now to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars as they flow here. That looks like the end of our board questions. Is there any public comment on either the operating or the capital budget presentations tonight? Seeing none. Thank you so much, and Mr. Stansky gets some sleep, a little bit at least. Item 6.02 is award of contracts. It's a review item. Are there any board questions on this item? Any public comment on award of contracts? Seeing none. The next General Board of Education meeting is on Wednesday, May 15th at 10 a.m. Again, that meeting is being switched from an evening meeting to a daytime meeting. So Wednesday, May 15th at 10 a.m. The next meeting of the Policy Committee will be Wednesday, May 8th at 1 p.m. And the next Budget Committee met today. Those are the only two meetings that we have. We now have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Urrea. Move to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Stand adjourned. Thank you.